Have you ever wondered why some individuals seem to have access to wisdom that transcends the ordinary? Why certain people can manifest their desires with an almost magical ease, while others struggle eternally against circumstances? The answer lies in the master key of Solomon, an ancestral knowledge that combines the millennial wisdom of history's wisest king with the most revolutionary discoveries of modern neuroscience. This is not just another book about manifestation. It is a complete manual for awakening the master that exists within you. Solomon was not merely rich and powerful. He had discovered the fundamental secrets that govern reality. He understood that the human mind is the true temple, and that within it reside the keys to transform any aspect of life. Now, for the first time, these ancient teachings are presented through the lens of modern science, revealing how you can access this same transformative power. Through a profound journey that combines sacred texts, quantum physics, and neuroplasticity, you will discover how to completely reprogram your reality. Each chapter unveils a facet of this master key, from the awakening of your higher consciousness to the practical manifestation of your deepest desires. This work not only explains the whys behind manifestation phenomena, but offers the practical tools and wisdom necessary for you to become the conscious architect of your own reality. Prepare to discover that you are not a victim of circumstances. You are the creator of them. Chapter 1. The Awakening of the Inner King. Every man is king of his own inner kingdom. Have you ever wondered why some people seem to possess an almost supernatural ability to transform their lives? Why certain individuals can manifest their desires with such ease that it appears magical, while others struggle endlessly against circumstances that feel beyond their control? The answer lies not in luck, genetics, or external advantages. It lies in a profound truth that King Solomon discovered over 3,000 years ago. A truth that neuroscience is now confirming with startling precision. You are already a king, ruling over the most powerful kingdom ever created, your own mind. But here's what most people don't realize. This kingdom has been operating under an unconscious regime. The true king, your higher consciousness, has been asleep, while lesser aspects of your personality have been making decisions from the throne. Today, we begin the process of awakening the rightful ruler within you. The Solomon frequency. When you think of King Solomon, what comes to mind? Perhaps his legendary wisdom, his immense wealth, or the magnificent temple he built. But what if I told you that these were merely external reflections of an internal mastery he had achieved? Solomon didn't become wise, wealthy, and powerful by accident. He had discovered something that modern science is only now beginning to understand. The human brain can be consciously rewired to access states of awareness that transcend ordinary thinking. Recent discoveries in neuroplasticity reveal that our brains are not fixed structures, but dynamic, changeable networks that reshape themselves based on our thoughts, emotions, and experiences. What Solomon intuited thousands of years ago, we now know to be scientifically accurate. Consciousness can literally restructure the physical brain. Think about this for a moment. When Solomon asked for wisdom rather than wealth, he was making a choice that would fundamentally alter his neural pathways. He was programming his brain to prioritize higher-order thinking, pattern recognition, and intuitive knowing over immediate gratification and survival-based reactions. The wisdom came first, and everything else, the wealth, the power, the influence, naturally followed. This is what I call the Solomon frequency, a state of consciousness where your brain operates from expanded awareness rather than contracted fear. It's a frequency you can learn to access, just as Solomon did. The neuroscience of inner royalty, Dr. Marcus Rachel's groundbreaking research on the brain's default mode network has shown us something remarkable. When we're not actively focused on external tasks, our brains don't simply shut down. They enter a highly active state where different regions begin communicating in ways that don't occur during normal waking consciousness. This network, which includes the medial prefrontal cortex, posterior cingulate, and angular gyrus, is where our sense of self is constructed and where our most profound insights emerge. Here's where it gets fascinating. This default mode network is the same brain state that mystics, sages, and enlightened beings throughout history have accessed during their peak experiences. It's the neurological gateway to what we might call royal consciousness, the state where you recognize yourself not as a victim of circumstances, but as the conscious creator of your reality. When Solomon entered his deepest states of prayer and contemplation, he was unknowingly activating this network. He was accessing the brain state where the boundaries between self and universe begin to dissolve, where profound wisdom downloads become possible, and where the feeling of separation that creates most human suffering simply evaporates. You have this same network. You have this same potential. The only difference between you and Solomon is that he learned how to access it consciously and consistently. The biochemistry of transformation. Consciousness isn't just about brain waves and neural networks. It's also about chemistry. When you shift into elevated states of awareness, your body begins producing a cocktail of chemicals that literally transform you from the inside out. Your brain releases increased levels of dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins, the same neurochemicals present during peak experiences of love, joy, connection, and transcendence. Even more remarkable is what happens in your pineal gland during these states. This tiny gland, no bigger than a rice grain and tucked deep within your brain, begins producing extraordinary chemicals. Beyond its normal production of melatonin, which regulates your sleep-wake cycles, the pineal gland can create compounds that dramatically alter your perception of reality. Ancient traditions called this gland the seat of the soul, and modern science is discovering why. When you consciously cultivate elevated emotional states, gratitude, love, joy, awe, you're literally changing your brain chemistry. You're moving from the stress hormones of survival mode into the blissful neurochemicals of creation mode. This isn't just feel-good philosophy. This is measurable, repeatable biology. Solomon understood this intuitively. His famous prayer asking for an understanding heart wasn't just poetic language. It was a precise neurochemical request. He was asking to be able to access the heart-brain coherence that occurs when the heart and brain enter synchronized rhythms, creating an optimal state for both wisdom and manifestation. The architecture of inner authority. Your consciousness operates through 3 distinct levels, much like a 3-story palace. Most people live exclusively on the ground floor, the survival mind, focused on security, comfort, and avoiding pain. Some occasionally visit the 2nd floor, the emotional mind, where creativity and relationship exist. But very few have discovered the 3rd floor, the royal chamber where your highest self resides. This royal chamber is not a metaphor. It corresponds to your prefrontal cortex, the most evolved part of your brain capable of abstract thinking, future planning, and moral reasoning. When this region is optimally activated and coherent with your heart center, you literally think, feel, and act from a higher order of consciousness. Solomon spent most of his time operating from this royal chamber. While others reacted to circumstances, he responded from wisdom. While others were driven by unconscious impulses, he acted from conscious choice. While others felt victimized by life, he understood himself to be life's conscious co-creator. The transformation from unconscious living to conscious sovereignty doesn't happen overnight, but it can begin in an instant. In the moment you truly understand that you have a choice about which level of consciousness you operate from. The crown that never left your head. Here's a truth that may shake you to your core. You have never actually stopped being royalty. Your essential nature, your true self, has always been whole, powerful, and wise. What happened is that you learned to identify with smaller aspects of yourself. You began to believe you were your thoughts, your emotions, your past experiences, your roles and responsibilities. But these are just costumes you wear. They are not who you are. The crown of consciousness has never left your head. It's been there all along, waiting for you to remember your true identity. Every moment of dissatisfaction you've ever felt, every yearning for something more, every intuition that life could be different. These have been whispers from your royal self, calling you home to your true nature. Solomon's greatest teaching was not about accumulating external wealth or building physical temples. His greatest teaching was about recognizing the kingdom that exists within consciousness itself. He understood that when you know yourself as the king or queen of your inner realm, the outer world naturally arranges itself to reflect that inner authority. This recognition doesn't require years of study or perfect circumstances. It can happen right now, as you read these words, if you allow yourself to feel the truth behind them. You are not a random collection of atoms stumbling through a meaningless universe. You are consciousness itself, temporarily focused through a human nervous system, with unlimited potential to create, to love, to grow, and to express the highest possibilities of existence. The initiation begins. As we close this first chapter, I want you to consider a possibility that might seem audacious. What if everything you've experienced up until this moment, every challenge, every victory, every seeming failure, has been preparing you for this awakening? What if your entire life has been an initiation into a deeper understanding of who you truly are? Solomon didn't become wise in spite of his challenges. He became wise because of how he chose to relate to them. Every difficulty became a teacher. Every setback became a setup for a comeback. Every moment of confusion became an invitation to seek higher understanding. The same is true for you. Your inner king or queen has been forged in the fires of experience, tempered by both joy and sorrow, strengthened by every moment you chose love over fear, growth over stagnation, possibility over limitation. As you prepare to sleep tonight, let this truth settle into your bones. You are not here by accident. You are not a victim of circumstances. You are not separate from the creative force that makes the stars shine and the flowers bloom. You are that force, expressing itself through your unique perspective, ready to claim the throne that has always been yours. The journey of awakening your inner king or queen begins with a single recognition. The kingdom of heaven is not a place you go to after death. It's a state of consciousness you can access right here, right now. And that kingdom, that royal consciousness, that master key to transforming your reality, lives within you. Tomorrow we'll explore how to build the pillars that support this royal consciousness. But for now, simply rest in the knowing that you are more than you've imagined, capable of more than you've dreamed, and worthy of the extraordinary life that awaits your conscious claiming. The king is awakening. The Queen is remembering, and your reality will never be the same. Chapter 2. The Pillars of Transformation, as above, so below, as within, so without. In the ancient halls of Solomon's temple, two magnificent pillars stood at the entrance, marking the threshold between the ordinary world and the sacred space within. These pillars, known as Jachin and Boaz, represented far more than architectural elements. They embodied the fundamental principles that govern all transformation, all creation, and all manifestation. Tonight, as you journey deeper into the master key of consciousness, you're going to discover that these same pillars exist within you. They are the foundational structures upon which your entire reality is built, and once you understand how to consciously work with them, you'll possess the power to reshape any aspect of your life with mathematical precision. What you're about to learn has been hidden in plain sight for millennia, encoded in ancient texts, whispered among mystics, and now confirmed by the most cutting-edge discoveries in quantum physics and neuroscience. The Hermetic principle, as above, so below, isn't just poetic philosophy. It's a precise description of how consciousness creates reality. The first pillar, the law of correspondence. Have you ever noticed how your external world seems to mirror your internal state with uncanny accuracy? When you're feeling chaotic inside, chaos appears in your environment. When you're at peace, life flows smoothly. When you're in love, the whole world seems more beautiful. This isn't coincidence. It's the first pillar at work. The law of correspondence states that there is a direct relationship between your inner reality and your outer experience. Your thoughts, emotions, beliefs, and states of being are constantly broadcasting a signal into the quantum field, and that field responds by organizing experiences that match your internal frequency. Solomon understood this law so completely that he could literally think a reality into existence. When he needed wisdom, he didn't just hope for it. He became it internally first. When he required resources for building the temple, he aligned his consciousness with abundance before the gold and materials manifested. He had learned the secret that modern quantum physicists are now proving. Consciousness doesn't just observe reality, it participates in creating it. Dr. Dean Radin's extensive research at the Institute of Noetic Sciences has demonstrated that focused intention can influence random number generators, affect the growth rate of plants, and even alter the molecular structure of water. Your consciousness is not contained within your skull. It's a field that extends far beyond your physical body, interacting with and influencing the quantum substrate of reality itself. But here's where most people get stuck. They try to change their external circumstances while keeping their internal world the same. They want different results while maintaining the same thoughts, emotions, and beliefs that created their current reality. This is like trying to change your reflection in a mirror by manipulating the mirror itself, rather than changing what stands before it. The first pillar teaches us that lasting transformation must begin within. When you change your internal state, when you literally become a different person on the inside, your external world has no choice but to reorganize itself to match your new frequency. This isn't wishful thinking, it's physics, the second pillar. The principle of vibration. Everything in the universe is in motion. From the smallest subatomic particles to the largest galaxies, nothing is truly solid or static. What appears solid to our senses is actually energy vibrating at specific frequencies. Your body, your thoughts, your emotions, everything is vibration expressing itself in different forms. Solomon knew this intuitively. Ancient Hebrew texts describe him as a master of what they called the divine frequencies, the ability to attune his consciousness to the vibrational patterns of creation itself. When he spoke with authority, when he commanded resources to appear, when he demonstrated supernatural wisdom, he was working directly with vibrational principles that modern science is only beginning to understand. Your thoughts vibrate at measurable frequencies. Dr. Masaru Emoto's famous water experiments showed that positive thoughts and emotions create beautiful, symmetrical crystalline structures in water, while negative thoughts create chaotic, distorted patterns. Since your body is roughly 70% water, imagine what your consistent thought patterns are creating within your own biological system. But vibration goes deeper than just thoughts. Your emotions are perhaps the most powerful vibrational forces you generate. When you feel gratitude, your heart begins beating in a coherent rhythm that can be measured as a smooth, sine wave pattern. This coherence doesn't just stay in your heart. It radiates outward, creating a field of influence that extends several feet beyond your body. The Institute of Heart Math has proven that when you maintain heart coherence for just 3 minutes, you begin to influence the nervous systems of people around you. Your vibrational state literally entrains others to resonate at your frequency. This is why some people make you feel energized just by being in their presence, while others drain your energy. You're experiencing vibrational resonance in action. Solomon mastered this principle so completely that his very presence commanded respect and inspired awe. He didn't achieve this through force or manipulation, but through the pure power of his coherent vibrational state. He had learned to consistently generate frequencies of wisdom, love, and creative power, and these frequencies shaped everything around him. The architecture of transformation. Understanding these pillars intellectually is just the beginning. The real magic happens when you begin to consciously architect your transformation, using these principles as your blueprint. Just as Solomon designed his temple with precise measurements and specific materials, you must become equally intentional about designing your inner temple, your consciousness. Your consciousness operates through 3 primary centers, each vibrating at different frequencies and serving different functions. The ancient traditions mapped these centers thousands of years ago, and modern neuroscience has confirmed their accuracy with stunning precision. The first center is your survival brain, the reptilian complex that governs your most basic drives for safety, security, and reproduction. When you operate primarily from this center, you're in constant reaction mode, driven by fear, scarcity, and the need to control your environment. This creates a very low vibrational frequency that attracts more experiences of struggle and limitation. The second center encompasses your emotional brain, the limbic system where you process relationships, creativity, and emotional experiences. When you operate from this center, you're driven by your emotional states, seeking pleasure and avoiding pain. While this is higher than pure survival mode, it still keeps you reactive rather than creative, dependent on external circumstances for your emotional well-being. The third center is your executive brain, the prefrontal cortex, where higher-order thinking, creativity, and conscious choice-making occur. When you operate from this center, you're no longer at the mercy of your environment or your emotions. You become the conscious architect of your experience, able to choose your responses and create your reality from intention rather than reaction. Solomon spent most of his time operating from this third center. This is why he was known for his wisdom, He had trained himself to think, feel, and act from his highest possibilities rather than his conditioned patterns. The quantum field of infinite potential modern physics has revealed something that would have thrilled Solomon. At the quantum level, reality exists in a state of infinite potential until consciousness observes it into being. The quantum field is literally a realm of pure possibility, where all potential futures exist simultaneously until the act of observation collapses them into a specific reality. This means that right now, in this very moment, infinite versions of your life exist as potentials in the quantum field. There's a version where you're living your dream life, a version where you've healed from every limitation, a version where you've discovered and expressed your greatest gifts. These aren't fantasies. They're actual potentials existing in the quantum substrate of reality. The question is, which potential will you collapse into reality through your observation? And here's the key that Solomon understood. Your observation isn't just what you look at with your eyes. It's the total sum of your consciousness, including your thoughts, emotions, beliefs, and expectations. When you consistently think the same thoughts, feel the same emotions, and hold the same beliefs, you keep collapsing the same potentials into reality. You keep creating variations of the same life. But when you begin to think new thoughts, feel elevated emotions, and align with expanded possibilities, you begin to collapse different potentials. You literally begin to draw a new reality into being. This is why Solomon's wisdom wasn't just intellectual knowledge. It was lived understanding. He had trained himself to think, feel, and be from the future he wanted to create rather than the past he had experienced. He understood that to access new potentials, you must become a new person. The sacred marriage of mind and heart. One of Solomon's greatest insights was understanding the relationship between the mind and heart as complementary forces that, when aligned, create unlimited creative power. Modern research has discovered that the heart has its own neural network, essentially a heart-brain with over 40,000 neurons that can learn, remember, and make decisions independently of the brain in your head. When your heart and brain are in coherent communication, something remarkable happens. Your entire nervous system synchronizes into a state of peak performance. Your immune system strengthens, your cognitive function improves, your emotional stability increases, and your intuitive abilities are dramatically enhanced. You literally become a different version of yourself. But coherence between heart and brain isn't automatic. It requires conscious cultivation. Solomon achieved this through what we might now call heart-centered meditation, where he focused his attention in his heart center while maintaining elevated emotional states like gratitude, appreciation, and love. Recent studies have shown that when you focus on your heart center and consciously generate feelings of appreciation for just 30 seconds, you begin to shift into heart coherence. Maintain this for 3 minutes, and you start to influence your entire autonomic nervous system. Practice this consistently, and you begin to rewire your neural networks for sustained states of elevated consciousness. This isn't just about feeling good, although that's certainly a benefit. Heart coherence dramatically increases your ability to access intuitive information, make clear decisions, and literally attract experiences that match your elevated state. When Solomon sought wisdom, he didn't just think about it. He felt into it with his whole being, creating the coherent state that allowed higher wisdom to flow through him. The alchemy of elevated emotion. Perhaps Solomon's greatest secret was his understanding of emotion as the language of creation. While thoughts provide the blueprint of what you want to create, emotions provide the energy that brings those blueprints to life. Most people use their emotions reactively, feeling grateful after they receive something, feeling abundant after money shows up, feeling loved after someone treats them well. Solomon understood the inverse relationship. You must feel the emotion of your desired reality before it manifests in your external world. You must become grateful in advance, abundant before you see the evidence, loving before you receive love. This isn't positive thinking. It's quantum mechanics in action. When you generate elevated emotions like gratitude, joy, inspiration, and love, you're literally changing your electromagnetic signature. Your heart generates an electromagnetic field that's 60 times greater in amplitude than your brain's field and can be measured several feet away from your body. When you consciously cultivate elevated emotions, you're broadcasting a signal into the quantum field that draws matching experiences into your reality. But here's what separates masters like Solomon from casual practitioners: consistency. Solomon didn't just access elevated states occasionally. He learned to maintain them as his baseline. He conditioned his nervous system to live in states of wisdom, love, and creative power, not just during peak moments, but as his normal way of being. This is the true alchemy, transforming the lead of automatic emotional reactions into the gold of consciously chosen elevated states. When you master this alchemy, you master your reality, building your temple of consciousness. As we conclude this exploration of the pillars that support all transformation, recognize that you're not just learning concepts. You're receiving blueprints for rebuilding the temple of your consciousness. Just as Solomon's physical temple was constructed with specific proportions and materials to create a space where the divine could dwell, your inner temple must be constructed with precision and intention. The first pillar of correspondence reminds you that your external world is always reflecting your internal state. If you want to change what's showing up in your life, you must first change what's showing up in your consciousness. The second pillar of vibration teaches you that everything is energy in motion, and by consciously choosing your thoughts and emotions, you're literally tuning yourself to different frequencies of reality. Together, these pillars support the sacred architecture of conscious creation, the understanding that you're not at the mercy of random circumstances, but rather the deliberate designer of your experience. Tomorrow, we'll explore how to construct the inner chambers of your temple. But tonight, let this truth settle into every cell of your being. The same laws that governed Solomon's reality govern yours. The same principles that allowed him to manifest wisdom, wealth, and wonder are available to you right now. You are not separate from the creative force of the universe. You are that force, expressing itself through your unique perspective. The pillars of transformation are not outside you. They are the very structure of your consciousness, waiting for you to recognize their power and use them with the wisdom and authority that is your birthright. The temple of your awakened consciousness is under construction, and you are both the architect and the masterpiece being created. Chapter 3: The Temple of Sacred Mind. The true temple is not made of stones, but of consciousness. In the depths of ancient Jerusalem, Solomon's temple rose as a wonder of the world, a structure so magnificent that its very existence seemed to bend reality around it. But what if I told you that this physical temple was merely an external representation of something far more profound? What if the real temple that Solomon built was not made of cedar and gold, but of consciousness itself? Tonight, You're going to discover the sacred architecture of your own mind and learn how to rebuild it according to the same divine blueprints that Solomon used. You're going to understand that every thought you think, every emotion you feel, and every belief you hold is either adding to the construction of your inner temple or contributing to its decay. The time has come to become the master architect of your own consciousness, to design and construct an inner sanctuary so powerful, so coherent, and so aligned with your highest potential that it becomes a literal beacon of transformation in your life. The blueprint of divine consciousness. When Solomon received the plans for his temple, they weren't given randomly. Every measurement, every material, every ornamental detail was precisely specified to create a structure that could contain and amplify divine presence. Similarly, your consciousness operates according to specific architectural principles that either support or diminish your connection to higher wisdom and creative power. Modern neuroscience has revealed that your brain is not a fixed structure but a dynamic, ever-changing network that literally reshapes itself based on your thoughts, emotions, and experiences. Dr. Rick Hanson's groundbreaking research shows that every time you have a thought or feeling, you're physically changing the structure of your brain. You are literally sculpting your neural pathways with every moment of consciousness. But here's what's truly remarkable. Just as Solomon's temple was designed to be a dwelling place for divine presence, your brain has specific regions that, when properly activated and integrated, create an optimal state for accessing higher consciousness and manifesting your deepest desires. The prefrontal cortex, your brain's CEO, is designed to override automatic patterns and create new possibilities. Your limbic system, the emotional processing center, is meant to generate elevated states that fuel your highest visions. Your heart's neural network, containing over 40,000 neurons, is designed to access intuitive wisdom that transcends logical thinking. When these systems work in harmony, you become what Solomon represented, a conscious being, capable of accessing wisdom beyond ordinary, thinking and manifesting realities that seem miraculous to those operating from lower levels of consciousness, the Holy of Holies. Your prefrontal cortex in Solomon's temple, the most sacred space, was the Holy of Holies, a chamber so sacred that only the high priest could enter, and only once a year. This inner sanctum contained the Ark of the Covenant, representing the direct presence of divine wisdom and power. In your brain, the Holy of Holies is your prefrontal cortex. This is where your highest self resides, where your connection to infinite intelligence is strongest, and where your greatest creative powers are activated. When you operate from this sacred space in your mind, you literally think, feel, and act from a higher order of consciousness. But here's the challenge. Most people spend very little time in their mental Holy of Holies. Instead, they live in the outer courts of their consciousness, dominated by automatic thoughts, reactive emotions, and unconscious patterns inherited from their past. They've allowed their inner temple to become cluttered with mental debris, emotional chaos, and limiting beliefs that block access to their highest wisdom. Solomon understood that maintaining the purity and order of his inner temple was his most important responsibility. He didn't just build a physical structure and walk away. He established daily rituals, practices, and protocols to ensure that the temple remained a worthy dwelling place for divine presence. You must do the same with your consciousness. Every day, you must consciously choose thoughts that honor your inner temple. Every moment, you must decide whether your emotions are worthy of the sacred space within you. Every interaction must be an opportunity to either elevate the frequency of your inner temple or allow it to be degraded by unconscious reactions. The chambers of consciousness Solomon's temple contained multiple chambers, each serving a specific function in the overall spiritual ecosystem. Your consciousness operates similarly, with different mental and emotional chambers that either support or sabotage your highest potential. First chamber is your belief system, the foundational assumptions about reality that determine what you perceive as possible or impossible. Solomon's beliefs were rooted in his understanding that he was a co-creator with divine intelligence, capable of manifesting whatever was aligned with wisdom and love. Most people, however, carry beliefs inherited from their family, culture, and past experiences, beliefs that often limit them to recycling variations of what they've already experienced. Dr. Bruce Lipton's research in epigenetics has shown that your beliefs literally control which genes are expressed in your body. When you believe you're capable, worthy, and powerful, you activate genetic programs that support health, vitality, and success. When you believe you're limited, unworthy, or powerless, you activate genetic programs that create illness, aging, and struggle. The second chamber is your attention, the spotlight of consciousness that determines what aspects of infinite reality you focus on and therefore experience. Solomon trained his attention like a laser, focusing it consistently on wisdom, beauty, and divine order. This focused attention didn't just change his perception, it literally changed his reality by influencing the quantum field to organize itself according to his observations. Your attention is perhaps your most precious resource, yet most people allow it to be hijacked by whatever is loudest, most dramatic, or most emotionally charged in their environment. They focus on problems rather than solutions, on what's wrong rather than what's possible, on fear rather than love. This scattered reactive attention creates a scattered reactive reality. The third chamber is your emotional state, the feeling tone that colors every experience and broadcasts your vibrational signature into the quantum field. Solomon cultivated elevated emotional states as his default, maintaining frequencies of gratitude, awe, reverence, and love, regardless of external circumstances. Modern research has proven that your emotional state doesn't just affect how you feel. It affects how your immune system functions, how your brain processes information, how your genes express themselves, and how other people respond to you. When you maintain elevated emotional states, you literally become a different version of yourself at the cellular level. The sacred geometry of thought. One of the most profound secrets Solomon understood was that thoughts are not random electrical impulses. They're precise geometric patterns that create specific effects in the fabric of reality. Ancient traditions encoded this knowledge in sacred geometry, and modern physics is confirming that consciousness and matter interact through geometric principles. When you think a thought, you're not just having a mental experience. You're creating a geometric pattern in the quantum field. Coherent, focused thoughts create symmetrical, powerful patterns that tend to manifest easily in physical reality. Scattered, contradictory thoughts create chaotic patterns that tend to cancel each other out or manifest as confusion and struggle. Solomon's thoughts were like carefully crafted architectural blueprints, precise and purposeful. He didn't think randomly or reactively. He thought strategically, with full awareness that each thought was literally helping to construct his reality. This is why meditation and contemplation were such central practices in Solomon's daily routine. He understood that the quality of his thoughts directly determined the quality of his life. He spent time each day purifying his mental space, aligning his thoughts with his highest vision, and programming his consciousness with the patterns he wanted to see manifested in his world. You have the same power. Every thought you think is either building the reality you desire or constructing the reality you're trying to escape. There are no neutral thoughts. Every mental pattern is either aligned with your highest potential or pulling you away from it. The purification protocols in Solomon's physical temple, elaborate purification rituals ensured that only the highest frequencies could enter the sacred spaces. Similarly, your inner temple requires regular purification to maintain its power and clarity. Mental purification begins with becoming conscious of your unconscious patterns. Most people think somewhere between 60,000 to 70,000 thoughts per day, and research shows that about 90% of those thoughts are the same ones they had yesterday. They're literally recycling the same mental patterns day after day, which means they're constantly reconstructing the same reality. To purify your mental temple, you must become the observer of your thoughts rather than their victim. You must develop the ability to notice when you're thinking thoughts that don't serve your highest good and consciously choose to redirect your mental energy toward patterns that align with your vision. Emotional purification involves learning to generate elevated emotions independent of external circumstances. Solomon didn't wait for something good to happen before feeling grateful. He used gratitude as a tool to create good things. He didn't wait for abundance to appear before feeling abundant. He cultivated abundance as an internal state that naturally attracted external resources. This emotional mastery isn't about suppressing negative emotions or pretending everything is perfect. It's about recognizing that you have the power to choose your emotional state and that this choice is one of the most important decisions you make each day. Energetic purification involves clearing your personal electromagnetic field of chaotic frequencies. Your thoughts and emotions generate measurable electromagnetic patterns that extend several feet beyond your physical body. When these patterns are coherent and elevated, they create a field of influence that naturally attracts positive experiences and supportive people. The daily temple. Maintenance. Solomon didn't build his temple and then neglect it. He established daily practices to maintain its power and purity. Your inner temple requires the same consistent care and attention. Each morning, before engaging with the external world, Solomon would enter his inner temple and establish his consciousness for the day. He would align his thoughts with wisdom, his emotions with love, and his intentions with divine will. This wasn't just a nice spiritual practice. It was practical consciousness engineering that programmed his entire day for success. Your morning consciousness routine is equally crucial. The first thoughts you think and the first emotions you feel upon waking set the vibrational tone for your entire day. If you begin with worry, stress, or mental reactivity, you're programming your nervous system to attract more experiences that match those frequencies. Instead, you can choose to begin each day by consciously entering your inner temple. Take a few moments to appreciate the miracle of consciousness itself. Feel gratitude for the endless possibilities available to you. Set clear intentions for how you want to think, feel, and show up in the world. Throughout the day, Solomon would regularly return to his inner temple, using moments of stillness to realign with his highest vision and release any mental or emotional patterns that didn't serve his divine mission. You can do the same, using brief moments of conscious breathing, appreciation, or intention setting to maintain the purity and power of your inner sacred space. In the evening, Solomon would review his day from the perspective of his highest self, extracting wisdom from his experiences and releasing anything that didn't contribute to his growth. This evening, temple maintenance ensured that he went to sleep with a clear, elevated consciousness, allowing his subconscious mind to work on manifesting his highest visions while his body rested. The living temple. As we conclude this exploration of your inner temple, remember that you're not just learning about consciousness. You're actively participating in the reconstruction of your own awareness. Every insight you absorb, every elevated emotion you generate, every moment you choose wisdom over automaticity, you're literally building a more magnificent inner temple. Solomon's external temple was eventually destroyed, but the consciousness that created it was eternal. The physical structure was just a temporary expression of an internal reality that could never be taken away. Similarly, your external circumstances may change, but the temple of consciousness you build becomes your permanent foundation, your unshakable source of wisdom, power, and creative ability. The sacred architecture is already within you. The divine blueprints are encoded in your very being. The construction materials, your thoughts, emotions, and attention are constantly available. All that's required is your conscious participation in the building process. You are both the architect and the temple, the builder and the sacred space being constructed. With each elevated thought, each conscious choice, each moment of alignment with your highest potential, you're creating an inner sanctuary so powerful that it becomes a literal transmission station for divine consciousness. Tomorrow, we'll explore how to decode the symbolic language through which your awakened consciousness communicates with infinite intelligence. But tonight, rest in the knowing that the temple of your highest self is under construction, and you are creating a masterpiece worthy of the divine presence that seeks to express itself through you. Chapter 4. The Language of Symbols and Signs. Those who have eyes to see will see. In the quiet hours before dawn, when the veil between worlds grows thin, Solomon would receive his most profound revelations, not through words or logical analysis, but through a language far more ancient and powerful, the language of symbols, signs, and synchronicities. He understood that the universe is constantly communicating with those who have developed the eyes to see and the wisdom to interpret its messages. Tonight, you're going to learn this same sacred language. You're going to discover that every dream, every seemingly random encounter, every sudden insight or inexplicable knowing is actually part of an ongoing conversation between your conscious mind and the infinite intelligence that orchestrates all of reality. This isn't mystical wishful thinking. It's the recognition of how consciousness actually operates. Your brain processes over 11 million bits of information per second, but your conscious awareness can only handle about 40 bits. The remaining 10,960 bits of information don't disappear. They're processed by deeper levels of your consciousness and often emerge as intuitive insights, symbolic dreams, and meaningful coincidences. The question is, are you fluent in this language, or are you missing the constant guidance being offered to you? The original language of consciousness, long before humans developed spoken or written language, consciousness communicated through symbols, images, and patterns. This symbolic language isn't learned. It's inherent in the very structure of awareness itself. It's why certain symbols evoke immediate emotional responses regardless of cultural background, why certain dreams feel more significant than others, and why you sometimes just know things without logical explanation. Solomon was a master of this original language. The biblical accounts describe him interpreting dreams, understanding the speech of animals, and receiving wisdom through visions and symbolic encounters. What these stories are really describing is his highly developed ability to decode the symbolic communications of expanded consciousness. Modern neuroscience has discovered that your right brain hemisphere specializes in pattern recognition, symbolic processing, and holistic understanding. When you're in deeply relaxed states, particularly the theta brainwave states associated with meditation, prayer, and deep creativity, this symbolic processing system becomes highly active. Dr. Eben Alexander's research following his near-death experience revealed that consciousness can access information and understanding that transcends the normal filtering mechanisms of the logical mind. He discovered that in expanded states of awareness, information comes not as linear thoughts, but as complete symbolic packages, entire concepts transmitted instantaneously through images, feelings, and knowing. This is exactly how Solomon received his wisdom. He had learned to access these expanded states regularly, allowing his consciousness to download information directly from what Carl Jung called the collective unconscious, the vast reservoir of universal knowledge and wisdom that exists beyond individual thinking. The mathematics of meaning. What makes certain symbols, dreams, or synchronicities meaningful while others seem random? Solomon understood that meaning operates according to mathematical principles, patterns of correspondence, resonance, and timing that create coherent messages within the apparent chaos of daily experience. The first principle is emotional resonance. Meaningful symbols and signs always carry an emotional charge that captures your attention and creates a sense of significance. This emotional component isn't accidental. It's your deeper consciousness using emotion as a highlighting system to draw your attention to important information. When Solomon encountered a symbol or sign that carried emotional charge, he didn't dismiss it as coincidence. He understood that his emotional response was indicating that this particular pattern contained guidance relevant to his current situation or future path. The second principle is pattern repetition. Meaningful messages rarely appear just once. They show up repeatedly in different forms until your conscious mind recognizes the pattern. You might see the same number sequence multiple times, encounter the same animal in different contexts, or have similar themes appearing in dreams, conversations, and random encounters. Solomon trained himself to notice these repetitive patterns because he understood that the universe operates through feedback loops. When you're aligned with your highest path, you receive confirming signs and supportive synchronicities. When you're moving away from your true direction, you receive corrective messages through obstacles, delays, and challenging circumstances. The third principle is perfect timing. Meaningful signs and symbols appear at precisely the right moment to provide guidance, confirmation, or course correction. This timing isn't random. It's the result of your consciousness being entrained with the larger patterns of universal intelligence. The symbolic operating system. Your subconscious mind operates like a sophisticated computer, constantly running programs in the background that process, analyze, and synthesize information from countless sources. But unlike a computer that operates through linear code, your subconscious processes information through symbolic associations, emotional connections, and pattern recognition. Dreams are perhaps the most obvious example of this symbolic operating system at work. During sleep, your logical mind steps aside, allowing your deeper consciousness to process the day's experiences, work through unresolved issues, and access guidance from beyond your normal thinking patterns. Solomon kept detailed records of his dreams, because he understood them to be direct communications from his highest wisdom. He developed the ability to not only remember his dreams clearly, but to interpret their symbolic messages and apply their guidance to his waking life decisions. But symbolic communication doesn't only happen during sleep. Your intuitive guidance system is constantly active, sending you information through what researchers call thin slice judgments, instantaneous knowing that occurs faster than conscious thought. These intuitive hits often come as images, feelings, or sudden insights that provide remarkably accurate information about people, situations, and optimal choices. Dr. Gerd Gigerenzer's research on intuitive decision-making has shown that these rapid, non-conscious judgments are often more accurate than careful logical analysis, especially in complex situations with multiple variables. Your intuitive system processes patterns and relationships that your logical mind can't track consciously, providing guidance that seems almost supernatural in its accuracy. Solomon learned to trust and act on these intuitive communications because he understood that they were direct transmissions from intelligence that operated beyond the limitations of linear thinking. The art of symbolic interpretation developing. Fluency in the language of symbols requires understanding that meaning is not fixed. It's contextual, personal, and dynamic. The same symbol can mean different things to different people, or even different things to the same person at different times in their life. Solomon's approach to symbolic interpretation was both systematic and intuitive. He would first notice what captured his attention, what stood out from the normal flow of experience. Then he would feel into his emotional response, using his body's wisdom to gauge the significance of the symbol or sign. Next, he would consider the context, what was happening in his life, what questions he was pondering, what decisions he was facing. He understood that meaningful symbols always appear in relationship to your current circumstances and consciousness, providing exactly the guidance you need in the moment you need it. Finally, he would look for the broader pattern, how this particular sign or symbol connected to other guidance he had received, and how it fit into the larger story of his spiritual development and life purpose. This interpretive process wasn't just intellectual analysis. It was a form of consciousness, expansion that allowed him to perceive the deeper connections and meanings that exist beneath the surface of ordinary experience. The synchronicity web. Perhaps Solomon's greatest insight was recognizing that synchronicities, meaningful coincidences, are not random events but evidence of the underlying interconnectedness of all consciousness. Carl Jung, who coined the term synchronicity, understood it as a causal, connecting principle that reveals the hidden order within apparent chaos when you're aligned with your highest path and operating from elevated states of consciousness. Synchronicities become a regular part of your experience. People appear at exactly the right moment with exactly the information you need. Resources manifest precisely when you require them. Obstacles dissolve just as you're about to encounter them. These aren't miracles in the supernatural sense. They're the natural result of consciousness, operating in harmony with the larger intelligence that orchestrates reality. When your personal vibration aligns with universal patterns, you begin to surf the waves of synchronicity rather than fighting against the current of circumstance. Solomon lived in a constant flow of meaningful synchronicity because he had learned to maintain coherence between his thoughts, emotions, and actions. He didn't try to force outcomes through willpower alone. He aligned himself with the natural flow of creative intelligence and allowed that flow to carry him toward his highest possibilities. Modern research in complexity science has shown that synchronicities tend to cluster around periods of significant life. Transitions and personal transformation, they appear when your old identity is dissolving and a new version of yourself is emerging, serving as navigation beacons to guide you through the transformation process. The oracle. Within every ancient culture, recognized certain individuals who could access expanded states of consciousness and receive guidance from higher sources of wisdom. These oracles, prophets, and seers weren't different species of humans. They had simply developed their natural capacity to communicate with the deeper levels of consciousness that exist within everyone. Solomon was perhaps the most famous oracle of his time, but his abilities weren't unique gifts. They were developed skills. He had trained himself to regularly access the expanded states where symbolic communication becomes clear and guidance flows naturally. You have this same capacity. Your brain contains the same neural networks that allowed Solomon to access prophetic insight. Your consciousness has the same potential to download information from the universal field of intelligence. The only difference is that you may not have learned to recognize and trust these natural abilities. The development of oracular consciousness begins with learning to distinguish between the voice of your conditioned mind and the whispers of your deeper wisdom. Your conditioned mind speaks in familiar patterns, recycling thoughts and concerns from your past experience. Your deeper wisdom communicates through fresh insights, unexpected perspectives, and solutions that transcend your normal thinking patterns. Solomon cultivated this discrimination through daily practices of stillness, contemplation, and inner listening. He would regularly enter states of profound receptivity, allowing his consciousness to expand beyond personal concerns and access the transpersonal wisdom that exists within all consciousness. The living library. One of the most remarkable aspects of symbolic consciousness is its ability to access information that doesn't seem to exist in your personal memory banks. People in expanded states often report receiving detailed knowledge about subjects they've never studied, solutions to problems they haven't been working on, and insights into the experiences of others they've never met. This phenomenon points to what mystics have long described as the Akashic records, a field of consciousness that contains all information, all experiences, and all possibilities. Modern physics describes something similar in the quantum field, a level of reality where all potentials exist simultaneously, and information can be accessed through consciousness rather than sensory perception. Solomon understood that consciousness is not produced by the brain, but rather interfaced through it. The brain acts more like a radio receiver than a generator, tuning into different frequencies of information based on its state of coherence and the quality of attention being applied. When you develop symbolic consciousness, you begin to access this living library of universal knowledge. Information comes not through study or analysis, but through direct knowing, sudden understanding that arrives complete and fully formed, often accompanied by the absolute certainty that characterizes authentic insight. This direct knowing was the source of Solomon's legendary wisdom. He wasn't just intellectually brilliant. He had learned to access the frequency where universal intelligence broadcasts its insights to those who have developed the capacity to receive them. The practice of sacred attention developing fluency in the language of symbols requires cultivating what Solomon called sacred attention, a quality of awareness that is simultaneously relaxed and alert, open and discerning. This is very different from the scattered reactive attention that characterizes most modern consciousness. Sacred attention begins with learning to be fully present in each moment without agenda or expectation. When your mind is constantly planning, analyzing, or worrying, you miss the subtle communications that are constantly flowing through your awareness. But when you can rest in open, receptive presence, you begin to notice the patterns, signs, and synchronicities that provide ongoing guidance. This doesn't mean becoming passive or unfocused. Sacred attention is actually a highly active state. You're actively choosing to remain present, actively choosing to notice what wants to be seen, actively choosing to trust the wisdom that emerges from stillness, rather than the anxiety that emerges from mental activity. Solomon practiced sacred attention not just during formal meditation periods, but throughout his daily activities. He learned to maintain a background awareness of the symbolic dimension while fully engaging with practical responsibilities. This allowed him to receive guidance in real time and make decisions that were informed by both practical wisdom and transcendent insight. The integration of heaven and earth. We close this exploration of symbolic consciousness. Recognize that learning this language isn't about escaping the practical world. It's about bringing heaven to earth through the integration of expanded awareness with grounded action. Solomon didn't use his symbolic wisdom to retreat from worldly responsibilities. Instead, he applied his expanded consciousness to create unprecedented prosperity, build magnificent structures, and establish systems of justice that served countless people. His symbolic awareness enhanced rather than diminished his practical effectiveness. The same integration is available to you. As you develop fluency in the language of symbols and signs, you're not becoming less rational. You're becoming more complete. You're learning to access information and guidance that transcends logical analysis while still honoring the practical requirements of manifesting your visions in physical reality. Every symbol you notice, every synchronicity you recognize, every intuitive insight you receive is an invitation to dance with the creative intelligence that orchestrates all of existence. You're being invited to participate consciously in the universal conversation that is always taking place beneath the surface of ordinary experience. Tomorrow, we'll explore how to claim the ring of personal power that allows you to govern your inner kingdom with wisdom and authority. But tonight, open your awareness to the constant communication flowing through your consciousness. Notice what captures your attention. Feel into the emotional resonance of your experiences. Trust the knowing that emerges from stillness. The universe is speaking to you in every moment, offering guidance, confirmation, and creative inspiration through the sacred language of symbols and signs. All that's required is developing the eyes to see and the wisdom to trust what you perceive. Chapter 5. The Ring of Personal Power. True power does not dominate others, but governs oneself. In the legendary tales passed down through millennia, Solomon possessed a magical ring that gave him power over all forces, demons and angels, elements and circumstances, even the very fabric of reality itself. Kings and sorcerers sought this ring, believing it contained some supernatural talisman that would grant them dominion over the world. But tonight, you're going to discover the profound truth behind this ancient symbol. Solomon's ring was never an external object. It was the perfect mastery of his own consciousness. The real ring of power is the complete sovereignty you achieve when you learn to govern your thoughts, emotions, and responses with such precision that nothing external can disturb your inner authority. This isn't about controlling other people or manipulating circumstances through force. True power, the kind that Solomon wielded with such extraordinary effectiveness, comes from the recognition that your greatest influence over the external world flows from your complete command of your internal world. Tonight, you're going to forge your own ring of power and learn to wear it with the dignity and wisdom that befits a true sovereign of consciousness. The anatomy of true authority. What does it mean to have real power in this world? Most people confuse power with control, authority with domination, influence with manipulation. They seek to change their external circumstances while remaining victims of their internal reactions. They want to command respect while being enslaved by their own emotional patterns. Solomon understood that authentic power flows from a fundamentally different source. It emerges from the unshakable knowing of who you are at the deepest level, not your roles, not your achievements, not your possessions, but your essential nature as consciousness itself. Modern neuroscience has revealed something remarkable about this kind of self-mastery. When you develop what researchers call emotional regulation, the ability to choose your responses rather than react automatically, you literally strengthen the neural pathways in your prefrontal cortex while weakening the reactive circuits in your amygdala. Dr. Daniel Siegel's research shows that people with well-developed emotional regulation demonstrate increased activities in the insula, the brain region responsible for interoceptive awareness, your ability to sense what's happening inside your body. This internal awareness creates what he calls response flexibility, the space between stimulus and response where conscious choice becomes possible. This neurological flexibility is the biological foundation of personal power. When you can feel a triggering event without being controlled by it, when you can notice your emotional responses without being hijacked by them, when you can choose your words and actions from wisdom rather than reactivity, you possess something more valuable than all the external power in the world. Solomon cultivated this response flexibility to such a degree that he became legendary for his ability to remain calm, wise, and effective, regardless of what challenges or provocations he faced. His power wasn't based on what he could do to others. It was based on what nothing could do to him. The fortress of inner sovereignty. Imagine your consciousness as a magnificent fortress, with you as the sovereign ruler residing in the highest tower. From this elevated position, you can observe everything that approaches your kingdom. Thoughts, emotions, circumstances, other people's energy, but nothing can enter without your conscious permission. Most people have no such fortress. Their consciousness is like an open field where any thought can wander in, any emotion can take up residence, any external circumstance can create chaos. They live at the mercy of whatever energy happens to be flowing through their awareness at any given moment. Building your fortress of inner sovereignty begins with understanding the difference between experiencing something and being controlled by it. You can feel anger without becoming angry. You can notice fear without becoming fearful. You can observe limiting thoughts without believing them or acting from them. This distinction is crucial because it reveals that you are not your thoughts, emotions, or circumstances. You are the awareness that observes them. You are not the weather patterns passing through your consciousness. You are the sky in which they appeared and disappeared. Dr. Judson Brewer's groundbreaking research on mindfulness and addiction has shown that when people learn to observe their cravings without automatically acting on them, the neural pathways that drive compulsive behavior literally begin to weaken. The same principle applies to any automatic pattern. When you can observe it without being controlled by it, you begin to free yourself from its influence. Solomon mastered this observational stance so completely that ancient texts describe him as having power over demons, which, understood correctly, means he had mastery over the unconscious, compulsive patterns that enslave most human beings. He could feel the pull of automatic reactions without being pulled by them. The alchemy of response. The moment between stimulus and response is where your true power lives. In that space, which can last milliseconds or minutes depending on your level of development, you have the opportunity to choose who you want to be in relation to whatever is happening. Most people collapse this space completely. Something happens, and they react instantly from their conditioned patterns. Someone criticizes them, and they automatically defend. Someone threatens them, and they automatically fight or flee. Someone offers them something they want, and they automatically grasp. But when you develop the ring of personal power, you learn to expand this space of choice. You develop what Viktor Frankl called the last of human freedoms. The ability to choose your attitude in any given set of circumstances. This choice point is where alchemy happens. Alchemy isn't about turning lead into gold. It's about transforming the base metal of automatic reaction into the gold of conscious response. Every time you pause before reacting, every time you choose love over fear, every time you respond from wisdom rather than wound, you're practicing the highest form of alchemy. Solomon was a master alchemist, not because he could manipulate external substances, but because he could transform his internal responses. He understood that the external world is constantly presenting you with opportunities to either strengthen your unconscious patterns or transcend them through conscious choice. The research of Dr. Sarah McKay on neuroplasticity shows that every time you make a conscious choice to respond differently than your automatic pattern, you literally rewire your brain. You strengthen the neural networks associated with conscious choice while weakening the networks associated with automatic reaction. This means that every moment of consciousness, every pause before reacting, every choice to respond from your highest self rather than your conditioned patterns is literally forging your ring of power at the neurological level. The sovereignty of emotional mastery. Perhaps the most challenging aspect of personal power is emotional sovereignty, the ability to generate your emotional state independently of external circumstances. Most people are emotional slaves, feeling good when things go well and feeling bad when things go poorly. Their emotional life is entirely dependent on factors outside their control. Solomon understood that emotional mastery is the cornerstone of all other forms of power. When your emotional state depends on external circumstances, you're essentially giving your power away to everything and everyone around you. But when you can generate elevated emotions regardless of what's happening, you become truly free. This doesn't mean suppressing emotions or pretending to feel something you don't. It means understanding the difference between emotional reaction and emotional creation. Emotional reaction is what happens when external circumstances trigger automatic feeling patterns. Emotional creation is when you consciously choose to generate specific emotional states because they serve your highest good. Dr. Barbara Fredrickson's research on positive emotions has shown that feelings like gratitude, love, joy, and appreciation don't just make you feel good. They literally expand your awareness, increase your creativity, enhance your immune function, and improve your social connections. These elevated emotions create what she calls upward spirals that enhance every aspect of your life. Solomon made emotional mastery a daily practice, rather than waiting for circumstances to make him feel grateful, wise, or loving. He cultivated these states as his baseline. He understood that emotions are not just reactions to reality. They're creative forces that help shape reality. When you maintain elevated emotional states consistently, you're not just feeling better. You're literally broadcasting a different electromagnetic signature into the quantum field. You're changing the vibrational frequency that determines what experiences you attract and what possibilities become available to you. The command of conscious language. One of the most overlooked aspects of personal power is the sovereignty of your internal dialogue, the way you speak to yourself, the ongoing commentary that runs through your mind, either supports your highest potential or undermines it moment by moment. Solomon understood that words are not just communication tools, they're creative forces that literally program your nervous system and influence the quantum field around you. The Hebrew understanding of word, dabar, encompasses both speech and deed, recognizing that authentic words carry the power to create the realities they describe. Most people are completely unconscious of their internal dialogue. They allow their minds to run negative commentaries, catastrophic predictions, and limiting judgments without recognizing that these mental patterns are literally programming their reality. They talk to themselves in ways they would never tolerate from another person, claiming your ring of power requires becoming conscious of your internal language and deliberately choosing words that align with your highest vision. When you catch yourself thinking, "I can't," you consciously shift to, "I'm learning how." When you notice this is impossible, you redirect to, "I'm discovering new possibilities." This isn't positive thinking or denial. It's recognition that your internal dialogue is constantly influencing your neural networks, your emotional state, your behavioral choices, and your vibrational frequency. By choosing empowering language, you're literally reprogramming yourself for success. Dr. Shad Helmstetter's research on self-talk has shown that up to 77% of the thoughts most people think are negative, counterproductive, or working against them. But when people learn to consciously direct their internal dialogue, they can literally rewire their brains for confidence, creativity, and achievement. Solomon's legendary wisdom wasn't just about having profound insights. It was about maintaining an internal dialogue that consistently aligned with truth, possibility, and divine intelligence. His thoughts supported his vision rather than undermining it. The discipline of sacred boundaries. True personal power requires the ability to say no to thoughts that don't serve you, to emotions that diminish you, to people who drain your energy, and to activities that don't align with your highest values. Without clear boundaries, you're not sovereign. You're a victim of whatever energy happens to be flowing through your experience. Most people struggle with boundaries because they confuse kindness with compliance, love with enabling, and service with self-sacrifice. They say yes when they mean no, allow others to treat them poorly in the name of being nice, and sacrifice their own well-being to avoid disappointing others. Solomon understood that healthy boundaries are actually an expression of love for yourself and for others. When you allow people to treat you poorly, you're not serving their highest good any more than you're serving your own. When you say yes to things you don't want to do, you're creating resentment rather than genuine contribution. The ring of personal power includes the ability to maintain energetic boundaries, to stay centered in your own energy field rather than being pulled into other people's drama, chaos, or emotional states. This requires developing what Dr. Elaine Aron calls sensory processing, sensitivity, the ability to notice subtle energy shifts and respond appropriately rather than automatically absorbing whatever energy is around you. Sacred boundaries also apply to your relationship with information, entertainment, and social influences. Solomon was extremely selective about what voices he allowed into his consciousness, understanding that every input either elevates or diminishes your vibration. In our modern world, you're constantly bombarded with information, opinions, and energetic influences that can either support your highest potential or pull you into lower frequencies. Claiming your power means becoming conscious of these influences and making deliberate choices about what you allow into your awareness. The crown of authentic authority. As you develop your ring of personal power, something remarkable begins to happen. People start responding to you differently. They treat you with more respect, seek your guidance more often, and naturally defer to your wisdom and leadership. This isn't because you're trying to control or manipulate them. It's because authentic authority is recognizable at a subconscious level. When you embody true sovereignty, when you're clearly the master of your own consciousness, others instinctively recognize and respect that mastery. Dr. Amy Cuddy's research on presence has shown that when people embody confidence and self-assurance at the physiological level, others respond to them as more competent, trustworthy, and influential. But this presence can't be faked. It must emerge from genuine self-mastery. Solomon's legendary authority wasn't based on his title or position. It was based on the undeniable presence of someone who had achieved complete mastery over his own consciousness. People could feel that he was operating from a different level of awareness, and this recognition naturally created respect and influence. This kind of authentic authority emerges naturally as you develop your personal power. You don't need to demand respect. It flows naturally when you embody self-respect. You don't need to fight for your value. It becomes obvious when you know your worth. You don't need to control others. You inspire their highest potential by embodying your own. The responsibility of power. With great power comes great responsibility, and the ring of personal power is no exception. As you develop the ability to govern your consciousness with mastery, you become responsible for using that power in service of not just your own highest good, but the highest good of all. Solomon understood that true power is always in service to something greater than personal desires. His wisdom, wealth, and influence were channeled toward creating systems of justice, building structures that served his people, and establishing patterns of truth and beauty that would inspire generations. Your personal power carries the same responsibility. As you develop the ability to create your reality through conscious choice, you become responsible for creating realities that serve life, love, and the expansion of consciousness itself. This doesn't mean sacrificing your own well-being or becoming a martyr. It means recognizing that your individual awakening contributes to the awakening of human consciousness as a whole. When you embody mastery, you give others permission to do the same. When you demonstrate sovereignty, you inspire others to claim their own power. The ring of personal power is not a possession to be hoarded. It's a gift to be shared through the example of your being. Every moment you choose love over fear, consciousness over automaticity, wisdom over reaction, you're contributing to the elevation of human consciousness. The eternal ring. As we close this exploration of personal power, remember that the ring you're forging is not something you put on and take off. It becomes the very structure of your consciousness. Each choice to respond rather than react, each moment of emotional sovereignty, each boundary you maintain, each word you speak from wisdom rather than wound, strengthens this ring until it becomes unbreakable. Solomon's power was legendary not because he possessed some external talisman, but because he had forged his consciousness into an instrument of such precision and authority that nothing could disturb his inner sovereignty. The ring was his mastery itself. Your ring of power is being forged in this very moment, through your willingness to take complete responsibility for your inner world. Every time you pause before reacting, every time you choose your emotional state Every time you speak to yourself with kindness and wisdom, you're strengthening the golden band of consciousness that makes you truly powerful. Tomorrow, we'll explore how to transform the lead of ordinary emotions into the gold of elevated consciousness. But tonight, feel the weight of the ring you're creating, not as a burden, but as the crown jewel of your sovereign consciousness. You are not powerless. You are not at the mercy of circumstances. You are not a victim of other people's choices or energy. You are the sovereign ruler of your own consciousness, and from that throne, you have the power to create a reality worthy of your highest vision. The ring of power has always been yours. Tonight, you're simply remembering how to wear it with the dignity and wisdom that is your birthright. Chapter 6. The Alchemy of Elevated Emotions. Transform the lead of your basic emotions into the gold of wisdom. In the hidden chambers beneath Solomon's temple, it is said that he practiced the ancient art of alchemy, the mysterious science of transformation that could turn base metals into precious gold. But the deepest truth of Solomon's alchemical mastery had nothing to do with external substances. His greatest transformation was the ability to convert the heavy, dense emotions of human limitation into the luminous, elevated states that connect you directly to divine intelligence. Tonight, you're going to discover that you are already an alchemist. Every moment, through the emotions you choose to cultivate, you're either creating gold or lead in the laboratory of your consciousness. You're either elevating your frequency to match your highest possibilities or lowering it to recreate the patterns of your past. The alchemy of elevated emotions isn't just about feeling better, though that's certainly one of its gifts. It's about fundamentally changing your energetic signature so that you begin to attract experiences, opportunities, and relationships that match your transformed state of being. This is the secret that separated Solomon from other rulers of his time. While they relied on external force to create change, he had learned to wield the ultimate creative power, the ability to generate emotions that naturally magnetized the reality he desired to experience. The chemistry of consciousness. Emotion you experience is simultaneously a psychological state and a biochemical event. When you feel fear, your body produces stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline that literally change your cellular function. When you feel love, your system releases oxytocin, dopamine, and a cascade of healing compounds that optimize your biology for connection and growth. But here's what most people don't realize. You don't have to wait for external circumstances to trigger these beneficial emotional states. Dr. Joe Dispenza's groundbreaking research has shown that when you consciously generate elevated emotions like gratitude, appreciation, and compassion, your body produces the same beneficial chemistry as if wonderful things were actually happening to you. This means you can literally change your biology by changing your emotional state. You can optimize your immune system, enhance your cognitive function, and increase your creative capacity simply by learning to generate elevated emotions independent of external conditions. Solomon understood this principle intuitively. Rather than waiting for circumstances to make him feel wise, grateful, or inspired, he cultivated these states as his emotional baseline. He recognized that emotions are not just reactions to reality. They're creative tools that help shape reality. When ancient texts describe Solomon's wisdom as supernatural, they're describing the enhanced cognitive abilities that emerge when your brain is bathed in the neurochemicals of elevated emotions. When your consciousness operates from states like gratitude and love, You literally gain access to higher-order thinking patterns that aren't available when you're trapped in survival emotions. The frequency of manifestation. Every emotion carries a specific vibrational frequency, and these frequencies determine what experiences you attract into your life. Fear, anger, and resentment vibrate at lower frequencies that tend to attract more experiences of struggle, conflict, and limitation. Joy, love, and gratitude vibrate at higher frequencies that naturally magnetize experiences of harmony, abundance, and possibility. This isn't metaphysical speculation. It's measurable physics. Your emotions generate electromagnetic fields that extend beyond your physical body. Dr. Roland McCraty's research at the HeartMath Institute has documented that the electromagnetic field generated by your heart can be measured up to 8 feet away from your body, and this field changes dramatically based on your emotional state when you're incoherent. Emotional states, when your heart rhythm becomes smooth and harmonious, you literally broadcast a signal of coherence that influences your environment. Other people's nervous systems entrain to your coherent field, circumstances seem to align more easily, and opportunities appear with greater frequency. Solomon's legendary ability to influence others wasn't based on manipulation or coercion. It was the natural result of his consistently coherent emotional state. People were drawn to him because his emotional field created a sense of safety, wisdom, and possibility that others wanted to experience. This is why developing emotional mastery is essential for anyone who wants to create lasting change in their life. Your emotional state is your creative signature, constantly broadcasting instructions to the quantum field about what experiences to bring into your reality. The laboratory of transformation. Your body is a sophisticated biochemical laboratory where thoughts and emotions are constantly being converted into physical reality. Every cell in your body has receptor sites for the chemicals produced by your emotional states, which means your emotions literally become your biology. When you consistently experience stress, worry, and frustration, you're bathing your cells in chemicals that promote inflammation, suppress immune function, and accelerate aging. When you consistently generate states like appreciation, joy, and love, you're flooding your system with compounds that promote healing, enhance vitality, and optimize performance. Dr. Candace Pert's pioneering research on neuropeptides revealed that emotions are not just mental experiences. They're informational substances that carry messages throughout your entire body. These emotional molecules literally reprogram your cells, influencing everything from your posture and facial expressions to your immune response and genetic expression. This means that the emotions you choose to cultivate over time become the biological foundation of your personality. If you consistently practice elevated emotions, you literally become a different person at the cellular level. Your body begins to expect and support higher states of consciousness rather than the stress patterns that keep most people trapped in cycles of limitation. Solomon's transformation from a young shepherd to the wisest king in history wasn't just a change in external circumstances. It was a complete biological upgrade that occurred through his consistent cultivation of elevated emotional states. The practice of emotional alchemy, transformation from survival emotions to elevated emotions, doesn't happen automatically. It requires the conscious practice of emotional alchemy. This begins with recognizing that you have a choice about how you feel, regardless of what's happening around you. Most people are emotional victims, allowing their feelings to be determined by external circumstances, other people's behavior, or random memories that surface in their consciousness. They feel good when things go well and bad when things go poorly. never realizing that this reactive pattern keeps them trapped in cycles of emotional limitation. Emotional alchemy starts with the recognition that you can feel grateful before you have something to be grateful for, abundant before money shows up, loved before someone treats you lovingly. This isn't about denying negative emotions or pretending everything is perfect. It's about understanding that you have the power to generate states that serve your highest good. The practice begins with what Dr. Barbara Fredrickson calls micro moments of positivity, brief experiences of elevated emotions that you can cultivate throughout your day. You might take 30 seconds to appreciate the beauty of sunlight streaming through a window, feel genuine gratitude for your ability to breathe, or generate compassion for someone who seems difficult. These micro moments might seem insignificant, but research shows they create measurable changes in your neural networks, cardiovascular function, and immune response. More importantly, they begin to establish new emotional baselines that gradually shift your entire experience of life. Solomon practiced this kind of emotional alchemy consistently. Ancient texts describe him beginning each day with prayers of gratitude and appreciation, not because his circumstances were perfect, but because he understood that these emotional states would create the optimal conditions for wisdom, creativity, and manifestation. The heart as alchemical vessel. Your heart is much more than a pump that circulates blood. It's the primary alchemical vessel where emotional transformation occurs. Your heart contains over 40,000 neurons, forming what researchers call the heart brain, that can learn, remember, and make decisions independently of the brain in your head. When you focus your attention in your heart center while generating feelings of appreciation, gratitude, or love, you activate what heart math researchers call heart coherence, a state where your heart rhythm becomes smooth, harmonious, and highly ordered. This coherent state doesn't just feel good. It optimizes your entire nervous system for peak performance. In heart coherence, communication between your heart and brain becomes highly efficient. Your immune system strengthens, your cognitive function improves, and your intuitive abilities are dramatically enhanced. You literally become a more intelligent, creative, and effective version of yourself. But perhaps most importantly for manifestation, heart coherence creates what quantum physicists call local coherence, an ordered electromagnetic field that influences the probability of events in your immediate environment. When your heart is coherent, you begin to experience more synchronicities, more favorable circumstances, and more opportunities that align with your intentions. Solomon understood the heart as the center of wisdom, not just emotion. His famous prayer for an understanding heart was a request for the kind of heart-brain coherence that would allow him to access intelligence beyond ordinary thinking. He had learned that true wisdom emerges not from mental analysis alone, but from the integration of heart and mind in coherent partnership. The elevation of energy, one of the most profound aspects of emotional alchemy, is learning to move energy up your spine from the lower survival centers to the higher creative centers. This upward movement of energy is what spiritual traditions have always called raising your vibration or ascending to higher consciousness. Your lower energy centers, located in your pelvis, gut, and solar plexus, are designed to handle survival, security, and power. When your energy is primarily focused in these centers, you operate from patterns of fear, scarcity, and control. Your emotions tend to be reactive, your thinking tends to be limited, and your behavior tends to be driven by unconscious programming. But when you learn to move energy into your heart, throat, and head centers. You begin to operate from love, truth, and wisdom. Your emotions become creative rather than reactive. Your thinking becomes expansive rather than limited. Your behavior becomes conscious rather than automatic. Dr. Dispenza's research has documented that when people learn to move energy from their lower centers to their higher centers during meditation, they experience profound shifts in their personality, their health, and their life circumstances. They literally become different people, operating from higher frequencies of consciousness. Solomon mastered this energetic alchemy to such a degree that he could consciously access the highest levels of human potential. His wisdom, creativity, and manifestation abilities were the natural result of consistently operating from elevated energy centers rather than survival-based consciousness. The magnetic field of intention. When you combine elevated emotions with clear intentions, you create what might be called a magnetic field of manifestation, an energetic signature that naturally attracts experiences aligned with your highest vision. This isn't wishful thinking. It's the practical application of quantum field dynamics. Your intentions provide the blueprint of what you want to create, but emotions provide the energy that powers the manifestation process. Intention without elevated emotion remains as dry intellectual concept. Elevated emotion without clear intention becomes unfocused good feeling that doesn't create specific results. But when you marry crystal clear intentions with genuinely elevated emotions, you create a coherent signal that the quantum field can organize around. You become a powerful attractor of experiences that match your internal state. Solomon's legendary ability to manifest resources, solutions, and opportunities wasn't magical. It was the result of consistently combining clear intentions with elevated emotional states. He didn't just think about what he wanted to create. He felt the emotions of already having created it, generating the magnetic field that drew those experiences into reality. This practice requires learning to feel authentic gratitude for outcomes before they manifest, genuine excitement about possibilities before they appear, and real appreciation for gifts before they arrive. It's the emotional equivalent of living in the future you want to create rather than recycling the emotions of your past. The contagion of consciousness. Of the most remarkable aspects of elevated emotions is their contagious nature. When you consistently operate from states like joy, appreciation, and love, you literally influence the consciousness of everyone around you. Your elevated state becomes a gift that raises the frequency of your entire environment. Dr. David Hawkins's research on the levels of human consciousness revealed that a single person operating from elevated consciousness can counterbalance the negative influence of thousands of people operating from lower frequencies. Your personal emotional alchemy doesn't just transform your individual life. It contributes to the elevation of human consciousness as a whole. This is why Solomon's influence extended far beyond his immediate kingdom. People traveled from distant lands not just to hear his wisdom, but to experience the elevated consciousness that he embodied. His emotional mastery created a field of influence that inspired others to discover their own highest potential. When you practice emotional alchemy consistently, you become a beacon of possibility for everyone you encounter. Your elevated state gives others permission to access their own higher frequencies. Your emotional mastery becomes a catalyst for collective transformation. The sustainability of elevation, perhaps. The greatest challenge in emotional alchemy is learning to sustain elevated states over time rather than just accessing them occasionally. Most people can generate feelings of gratitude, love, or joy for brief moments, but they quickly return to their familiar emotional patterns when faced with stress, challenge, or routine daily life. True mastery involves what researchers call trait change, rather than just state change, actually shifting your baseline emotional patterns rather than just having peak experiences. This requires consistent practice, patience, and the understanding that you're literally rewiring your nervous system for a new way of being. Dr. Richard Davidson's research on neuroplasticity has shown that contemplative practices can create lasting changes in brain structure and function, but these changes require consistent engagement over time. The most dramatic transformations occur when people make elevated consciousness a lifestyle rather than just occasional practice. Solomon's greatness wasn't based on having occasional moments of wisdom or sporadic experiences of divine connection. His legend was built on his ability to maintain elevated consciousness as his normal state of being, allowing him to access higher intelligence and creative power consistently rather than just during peak moments. The legacy of transformation. We close this exploration of emotional alchemy. Recognize that every moment you spend in elevated emotions is not just improving your immediate experience. It's contributing to a legacy of consciousness that will influence generations. The frequencies you consistently embody become part of your energetic signature that affects everyone you encounter and every environment you enter. Solomon's greatest achievement wasn't his external wealth or magnificent buildings. It was the transformation of consciousness that he achieved and modeled for others. His emotional mastery created ripples of possibility that continue to inspire people thousands of years later. Your emotional alchemy carries the same potential. Every time you choose love over fear, gratitude over complaint, possibility over limitation, you're not just changing your personal reality, you're adding to the collective elevation of human consciousness. The lead of human limitation is being transformed into the gold of divine potential through your willingness to practice emotional alchemy. Your heart is the sacred vessel where this transformation occurs, and your consistent choice to generate elevated emotions is the fuel that powers the process. Tomorrow, we'll explore how to wield the scepter of creation through the conscious use of your word and intention. But tonight, feel the golden frequency of your elevated emotions beginning to transform every cell in your body, every thought in your mind, and every experience in your reality. You are not at the mercy of your emotional patterns. You are the alchemist of your own consciousness, with the power to transform any state into gold through the practice of elevated emotion. The laboratory is open, the vessel is prepared, and the great work of transformation is already underway. Chapter 7. The Scepter of Conscious Creation. Let it be done according to your word. In the royal court of ancient wisdom, Solomon wielded a scepter that represented far more than earthly authority. This sacred rod symbolized his mastery over the most creative force in the universe, the power of conscious speech. When Solomon spoke with true authority, reality itself seemed to reorganize around his words. Kings sought his counsel, problems dissolved at his command, and resources manifested as if summoned from the very fabric of creation. Tonight you're going to discover that you carry the same scepter. Every word you speak, every internal command you issue, every declaration you make is either creating the reality you desire or reinforcing the limitations you seek to transcend. The power that shaped Solomon's legendary life is the same power that flows through your conscious use of language right now. But this isn't about positive affirmations or wishful thinking. This is about understanding the quantum mechanics of consciousness, how your words, when spoken with the proper authority and alignment, literally program the field of infinite potential to materialize specific experiences in your physical reality. The scepter of conscious creation has always been in your hands. Tonight, you're going to learn to wield it with the precision and power that befits a true sovereign of consciousness. The physics of the spoken word, modern quantum physics, has revealed something that ancient wisdom traditions have always known. Consciousness and language are fundamental forces in the creation of reality. When you speak, whether aloud or in the privacy of your mind, you're not just communicating information. You're issuing commands to the quantum field that surrounds and permeates all of existence. Dr. Stuart Hameroff's research on quantum consciousness suggests that the microtubules in your brain cells operate as quantum computers, processing information at the level where consciousness meets physical reality. When you form words with conscious intention, you're literally creating interference patterns in the quantum field that influence how potential realities collapse into actual experience. But here's what separates powerful speech from mere talking: the degree of coherence between your thoughts, emotions, and words. When these three elements are perfectly aligned, when you think, feel, and speak from the same frequency, you create what physicists call constructive interference in the quantum field. Your words carry exponentially more creative power than when they're spoken from scattered or conflicted consciousness. Solomon understood this principle with mathematical precision. His words weren't just expressions of his thoughts. They were carefully crafted instruments of creation, spoken from a state of complete internal alignment. When he declared something to be true, his entire being, mental, emotional, and energetic, supported that declaration with unwavering coherence. This is why ancient texts describe his words as having supernatural power. He had learned to speak from such deep alignment that the universe had no choice but to respond to his commands. The authority of authentic voice, true creative power through speech, doesn't come from shouting louder or repeating words more often. It emerges from what we might call authentic authority, the unmistakable resonance that occurs when you speak from your deepest truth, rather than from wishful thinking or desperate hoping. Authentic authority has a specific, energetic signature that can be felt by others and recognized by the quantum field itself. When you speak from this place, your words carry what ancient traditions called the word of power, language that doesn't just describe reality but actively participates in creating it. Dr. Amy Cuddy's research on presence has shown that when people embody confidence and authority at the physiological level, their communication becomes dramatically more influential. But this embodied authority can't be faked. It must emerge from genuine self-knowledge and alignment with your highest truth. Solomon's legendary wisdom wasn't just about having clever insights. It was about speaking from such profound self-knowledge that his words naturally carried the authority of universal truth. When he spoke about justice, he embodied justice. When he spoke about wisdom, he was the living expression of wisdom itself. This authentic authority is available to you, but it requires releasing the small, limited identity that speaks from fear, doubt, and unworthiness. You must learn to speak from your highest self, the aspect of your consciousness that knows itself as one with the creative intelligence of the universe. The geometry of sacred speech. Word you speak creates geometric patterns in the quantum field. Coherent, truthful speech creates symmetrical, powerful patterns that tend to manifest easily in physical reality. Scattered, contradictory speech creates chaotic patterns that tend to cancel each other out or manifest as confusion and struggle. Dr. Masaru Emoto's famous water experiments demonstrated that words and intentions can literally restructure the molecular geometry of water. When water was exposed to words like love and gratitude, it formed beautiful, symmetrical, crystalline structures. When exposed to words like hate and fear, it created distorted, chaotic patterns. Since your body is roughly 70% water, imagine what your consistent speech patterns are creating within your own biological system. Every word you speak to yourself or others is literally restructuring the molecular foundation of your physical reality. Solomon understood that words are not just sounds. They're vibrational blueprints that instruct matter how to organize itself. This is why he was so careful with his speech, understanding that every utterance was participating in the ongoing creation of his reality. But the geometry of sacred speech goes beyond individual words. The structure of your sentences, the rhythm of your speech, and the emotional tone that accompanies your words all contribute to the overall pattern you're creating in the quantum field. When you speak in positive, declarative statements rather than negative, doubtful questions, you create stronger geometric patterns. When you use present tense rather than future tense, you generate more immediate creative force. When you speak with gratitude and appreciation rather than complaint and criticism, you produce more harmonious patterns that attract supportive experiences. The alchemy of internal dialogue. Perhaps the most overlooked aspect of conscious creation is the power of your internal dialogue, the constant stream of words flowing through your mind that either supports your highest vision or undermines it moment by moment. Research shows that you think somewhere between 60,000 to 70,000 thoughts per day, and that up to 90% of those thoughts are repetitions from previous days. This means that most people are unconsciously recycling the same mental conversations day after day, which explains why they keep experiencing variations of the same reality. But here's the profound truth that Solomon mastered. Your internal dialogue is not just thinking, it's programming. Every word you say to yourself is either reinforcing neural pathways that support your highest potential or strengthening patterns that keep you trapped in limitation. When you catch yourself thinking, I can't afford this, you're not just observing a financial reality, you're issuing a command to your subconscious mind to maintain scarcity patterns. When you notice yourself saying, this is too hard, you're not just expressing difficulty, you're programming your consciousness to experience struggle. Solomon maintained what we might call royal internal dialogue. He spoke to himself with the same respect, wisdom, and positive expectation that he offered to honored guests. His internal conversations consistently supported his highest vision rather than undermining it with doubt, criticism, or limitation. The alchemy of transforming your internal dialogue begins with becoming conscious of the words you use in the privacy of your mind. Notice when you're criticizing yourself, predicting failure, or rehearsing worst-case scenarios. Then consciously choose to redirect your mental speech toward words that align with your highest potential. This isn't about positive thinking or denial. It's about recognizing that your internal dialogue is literally creating your reality through the continuous programming of your subconscious mind and the vibrational signals you're broadcasting into the quantum field, the science of manifestation through word. When you understand the science behind manifestation, you realize that conscious speech isn't mystical magic, it's applied quantum mechanics. Your words, when spoken with proper alignment and authority, create measurable effects in the field of consciousness that surrounds you. Dr. Dean Radin's Research at the Institute of Noetic Sciences has demonstrated that focused intention can influence random number generators, affect the growth rate of plants, and even alter the behavior of quantum systems. Your conscious speech is focused intention expressed through the precise vibrational patterns of language. But manifestation through word requires more than just saying what you want. It requires what ancient traditions called speaking from the future, using language that assumes the reality you're creating has already occurred at the level of consciousness, even if it hasn't yet appeared in physical form. When Solomon needed resources for building the temple, he didn't say, "I hope I can find enough gold." He spoke from the consciousness of someone who already had abundant resources, using present-tense language that assumed the manifestation was already complete at the energetic level. This future-perfect speech patterns signal to your subconscious mind and the quantum field that the desired reality is not just a possibility, but an inevitability. You're not hoping it will happen. You're simply allowing what has already been created in consciousness to unfold in physical form. The key is learning to speak from the end result rather than from your current circumstances. Instead of, "I want to be healthy," you say, "I am grateful for my perfect health." Instead of, "I hope things get better," you declare, "I appreciate how beautifully everything is unfolding." Instead of, "I need more money," you state, "I celebrate my abundant prosperity." This isn't about lying or pretending. It's about recognizing that reality exists first as consciousness and then as physical experience. By speaking from the consciousness of your desired reality, you're actually participating in its creation. The rhythm of royal decree Solomon's speech carried a specific rhythm and cadence that made his words unmistakably authoritative. This wasn't just charisma or confidence. It was the natural rhythm that emerges when you speak from complete internal coherence. When your heart, mind, and higher wisdom are in perfect alignment, your speech naturally takes on what we might call the rhythm of royal decree, a pace and tone that commands attention and respect, not through force, but through the unmistakable resonance of truth. This rhythm has specific characteristics that you can learn to embody. Royal decree is spoken slowly enough to be clear and deliberate, but not so slowly that it loses energy. It carries emotional warmth without being overly emotional. It's confident without being arrogant, powerful without being aggressive. Most importantly, royal decree is spoken from a place of service to the highest good, rather than from ego or personal manipulation. When Solomon spoke with authority, he was channeling the voice of wisdom itself, using his individual consciousness as an instrument for universal intelligence. You can develop this same rhythm in your own speech by learning to pause before important statements, allowing yourself to feel the alignment between your heart and mind before you speak. Practice speaking your highest truths with deliberate pace and conscious intention. Notice how different it feels to speak from this centered place compared to speaking from anxiety, excitement, or unconscious habit. The sacred use of a repetition. One of the most powerful aspects of conscious creation through word is the strategic use of a repetition. But this isn't mindless repetition. It's what ancient traditions called sacred iteration, where you consciously repeat aligned statements to create momentum in the quantum field. Your subconscious mind learns through repetition, and the quantum field responds to consistent vibrational signals. When you repeat the same aligned statement multiple times over multiple days, You're literally creating new neural pathways while simultaneously strengthening the energetic pattern of your desired reality. But sacred repetition requires emotional authenticity. Simply repeating words without feeling their truth is like playing a song without any instruments. You might hear the melody, but there's no power behind it. Solomon understood that effective repetition involves finding new ways to feel the truth of what you're speaking each time you say it. If you're declaring abundance, you might feel grateful for existing blessings one time, excited about future possibilities another time, and appreciative of your capacity to create prosperity yet another time. The key is keeping the repetition alive with authentic emotion rather than allowing it to become mechanical or rote. Each time you speak your truth, you're not just repeating words. You're strengthening your alignment with the reality you're creating. The responsibility of creative speech. With the power to create through conscious speech comes the profound responsibility to use this power wisely. Solomon understood that his words didn't just affect his own reality. They influenced everyone around him and contributed to the collective consciousness of his entire kingdom. When you speak from authentic authority, your words carry influence beyond your immediate circle. People are inspired by truthful speech, elevated by words spoken from wisdom, and positively affected by language that emerges from love rather than fear. This means that your conscious speech is not just a personal development tool, it's a form of service to the elevation of human consciousness. Every time you speak from your highest truth, rather than your conditioned patterns, you're contributing to the healing and transformation of the world. The responsibility extends to avoiding speech that diminishes others or reinforces limitation. Solomon never used his verbal power to manipulate, control, or harm others. His speech was always aligned with justice, wisdom, and the highest good of all concerned. This doesn't mean avoiding difficult conversations or speaking only pleasant platitudes. It means speaking truthfully and wisely, even when the truth is challenging, while always holding the intention for healing and growth rather than harm or diminishment. The eternal echo as we close this exploration of conscious creation through word. Remember that every word you speak creates echoes that ripple through the quantum field long after the sound has faded. Your conscious speech is literally writing the story of your life in the Akashic records of universal consciousness. Solomon's words have echoed through history for thousands of years, continuing to inspire and elevate people in every generation. His mastery of conscious speech created a legacy that transcends his individual lifetime, contributing to the evolution of human consciousness itself. Your words carry the same potential for creating lasting impact. Every truth you speak from authentic authority, every declaration you make from aligned consciousness, every word you offer from love rather than fear adds to the collective elevation of human understanding. The scepter of conscious creation is in your hands right now. Every word you think, every statement you make, every declaration you offer is either building the reality of your highest vision or reinforcing the patterns you seek to transcend. Tomorrow, we'll explore how to open the portals to expanded dimensions of consciousness, where even greater creative power becomes available. But tonight, feel the weight and dignity of the scepter you carry, not as a burden, but as the sacred instrument through which divine intelligence speaks itself into existence through your unique voice. You are not powerless over your circumstances. You are the creative force that shapes reality through the conscious use of your word. Every declaration you make from aligned consciousness is a royal decree that the universe is already moving to fulfill. The scepter has always been yours. Tonight, you're simply remembering how to wield it with the wisdom, authority, and love that is your birthright as a sovereign of consciousness. Chapter 8. The Dimensional Portals of Consciousness. In my Father's house are many mansions in the deepest chambers of Solomon's temple. Hidden from ordinary view were secret passages that led to dimensions beyond the physical world. These weren't architectural features carved in stone. They were portals of consciousness that allowed him to access realms of intelligence, wisdom, and creative power that exist beyond the limitations of ordinary thinking. Tonight, you're going to discover that these same dimensional portals exist within your own consciousness. Your brain contains gateway systems that, when properly activated, can transport your awareness into expanded dimensions where the solutions to your greatest challenges already exist, where the wisdom you seek is readily available, and where the creative power to transform your life flows like an endless river. This isn't science fiction or mystical fantasy. Modern neuroscience has identified specific brain states and neural networks that correspond exactly to what ancient traditions described as traveling to other worlds or communing with divine intelligence. What the mystics experienced as journeys to celestial realms, we now understand as access to extraordinary states of consciousness that reveal the deeper dimensions of reality. The portals have always been within you. Tonight, you're going to learn to open them with the precision and mastery that allowed Solomon to receive wisdom that seemed to come from beyond human understanding. The architecture of expanded awareness. Your brain is not just a biological computer. It's a sophisticated dimensional gateway system with the capacity to access multiple levels of reality simultaneously. Neuroscientist Dr. Eben Alexander's research following his near-death experience revealed that consciousness can operate independently of the physical brain, accessing information and awareness that transcend the normal boundaries of space and time. The key lies in understanding that your everyday waking consciousness represents only one narrow band of a vast spectrum of awareness. Just as your eyes can only perceive a tiny fraction of the electromagnetic spectrum, your ordinary thinking mind can only access a limited range of the infinite intelligence that surrounds and permeates all existence. But hidden within your neural architecture are specific systems that, when activated through precise states of consciousness, can expand your awareness far beyond these normal limitations. The pineal gland, often called the third eye, functions as a biological antenna capable of receiving frequencies of information that exist beyond the five senses. Dr. Joe Dispenza's research has documented remarkable changes in brain chemistry when people access expanded states during deep meditation. The pineal gland begins producing elevated levels of melatonin and its derivatives, including compounds that dramatically alter perception and awareness. These aren't hallucinations. They're actually enhanced states of consciousness that reveal aspects of reality normally filtered out by ordinary thinking. Solomon understood this system intuitively. Ancient texts describe him receiving wisdom through dreams, visions, and direct revelations that came during states of deep contemplation. He had learned to consciously activate these portal systems, allowing his awareness to expand into dimensions where universal intelligence could flow through him unobstructed, the gateway of the Sacred Heart. The first and most accessible portal lies within your heart center. Modern research has revealed that your heart contains over 40,000 neurons, more than many areas of your brain, forming what scientists call the heart-brain This neural network can process information, form memories, and make decisions independently of your head brain. But the heart's role as a dimensional gateway goes far deeper than its neurological complexity. When you achieve what heart math researchers call heart coherence, a state where your heart rhythm becomes smooth and harmonious, something extraordinary happens. Your electromagnetic field expands and becomes more organized, creating what physicists call local coherence that can influence probability fields in your immediate environment. Dr. Roland McCready's research has shown that in deep heart coherence, people begin to access what he calls non-local intuition, accurate information about future events that hasn't yet been determined through normal causal chains. This suggests that the coherent heart can literally tune into quantum potentials that exist beyond the normal boundaries of space and time. Solomon's famous prayer for an understanding heart was actually a request for this kind of expanded awareness. He understood that the heart, when properly activated, becomes a portal to wisdom that transcends logical analysis. His legendary ability to make perfect decisions wasn't based on superior reasoning. It was based on his capacity to access heart-centered intelligence that could perceive the deeper patterns underlying any situation. This heart portal doesn't require years of training to activate. When you focus your attention in your heart center while generating feelings of appreciation, gratitude, or love, you begin to establish the coherent state that opens this gateway. As you maintain this focus, your awareness naturally expands beyond personal concerns into broader dimensions of understanding and possibility. The cosmic antenna of the pineal deep within your brain, approximately at the geometric center of your skull, lies a tiny gland that ancient traditions revered as the seat of the soul. The pineal gland, no larger than a grain of rice, functions as your primary antenna for accessing dimensions of consciousness that exist beyond ordinary sensory perception. Modern research has revealed remarkable properties of this seemingly simple gland. Unlike other brain structures, the pineal contains crystalline structures similar to those found in advanced radio receivers. It's the only part of your brain that isn't divided into left and right hemispheres, suggesting its role as a unified portal between dimensions of consciousness. Dr. Rick Strassman's groundbreaking research has shown that the pineal gland produces not only melatonin, which regulates sleep cycles, but also more exotic compounds, including dimethyltryptamine, DMT, often called the spirit molecule because of its ability to induce profound spiritual experiences and encounters with apparently non-physical intelligences. These aren't random chemical events. The pineal responds to specific states of consciousness, particularly those characterized by deep meditation, profound gratitude, and selfless love. When you consistently cultivate these elevated states, you literally begin to activate your cosmic antenna, tuning into frequencies of information that exist beyond the normal range of human perception. Solomon's access to supernatural wisdom wasn't supernatural at all. It was the natural result of a fully activated pineal gland operating in its highest capacity. His daily practices of prayer, contemplation, and conscious connection with divine intelligence had developed this portal to such a degree that he could receive guidance and insight on demand. The activation of this portal requires specific techniques that create the optimal brain chemistry for dimensional expansion. When you combine focused attention, elevated emotion, and specific breathing patterns while maintaining a state of open receptivity, you begin to stimulate the pineal gland's production of consciousness-expanding compounds. The quantum field interface, perhaps the most profound portal is your direct interface with what physicists call the quantum field, or zero-point field, the fundamental layer of reality where all potentials exist simultaneously before collapsing into specific experiences through observation and consciousness. Dr. Lynn McTaggart's research documented in the field reveals that consciousness appears to operate through quantum mechanisms that connect all minds in a vast web of information and possibility. This quantum field contains what we might call the universal hard drive, all knowledge, all possibilities, and all potential solutions existing in a state of pure potential waiting to be accessed by sufficiently expanded consciousness. When your brain enters specific states, particularly the gamma waves associated with heightened awareness and the theta waves associated with deep meditation, you begin to interface directly with this quantum field. In these states, information doesn't come through logical reasoning or memory recall. Instead, complete insights, creative solutions, and profound understanding simply download into your awareness as if from an external source. Solomon's legendary wisdom often manifested as this kind of instantaneous knowing. When faced with complex problems like the famous case of the two women claiming the same baby, his solutions didn't emerge from careful analysis. They arose as complete insights that revealed the perfect response to seemingly impossible situations. This quantum field interface explains why some of humanity's greatest discoveries and innovations have come through sudden flashes of insight rather than methodical research. Tesla received his most revolutionary inventions through visions that came during altered states. Einstein's theory of relativity emerged through thought experiments that transcended logical analysis. Mozart described his symphonies as arriving complete and fully formed from sources beyond his personal creativity. You have access to this same field of infinite intelligence when you learn to quiet your analytical mind and expand into receptive awareness. You begin to tap into the same source of wisdom and creativity that inspired history's greatest innovators and mystics. The downloads of divine intelligence. One of the most remarkable experiences that occurs when these portals open is what many describe as downloads, complete packages of information, insight, or understanding that arrive in consciousness instantaneously rather than through gradual learning or reasoning. Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor's experience during her stroke, documented in My Stroke of Insight, provides a scientific perspective on this phenomenon. When the left hemisphere of her brain was temporarily disabled, she found herself accessing forms of awareness and understanding that seemed to come from beyond her individual consciousness. She described receiving complete insights about the nature of consciousness, reality, and human potential that felt like direct transmissions from universal intelligence. These downloads often carry a distinctive quality that distinguishes them from ordinary thoughts or insights. They tend to arrive with absolute certainty, complete clarity, and often with implications that extend far beyond the immediate question or situation. They frequently contain information or perspectives that the conscious mind hadn't previously considered, suggesting access to intelligence beyond personal knowledge and experience. Solomon's wisdom was characterized by exactly this quality. His judgments and insights often surprised even his closest advisors because they revealed perspectives and solutions that no one else had considered. His understanding seemed to come from a source beyond personal learning or cultural knowledge. The capacity to receive these downloads can be developed through practices that create optimal conditions for dimensional access. When you maintain states of humble receptivity, elevated emotion, and complete presence, you essentially create a clear channel through which universal intelligence can flow into your personal awareness. The navigation of multiple realities advanced. Practitioners of dimensional consciousness learn to navigate what we might call parallel processing of multiple realities simultaneously. This isn't about losing touch with physical reality. It's about expanding your awareness to include multiple dimensions of experience while maintaining grounded effectiveness in your daily life. Dr. Michael Newton's research into life between lives, hypnotherapy revealed that consciousness appears capable of existing in multiple dimensions simultaneously, accessing information and experiences that exist outside normal space-time limitations. His work suggests that what we experience as linear time and singular focus may be just one mode of consciousness operation. Solomon demonstrated this capacity in his ability to simultaneously manage the practical affairs of his kingdom while receiving mystical wisdom from transcendent sources. He wasn't switching between different states. He was operating from an expanded awareness that could process multiple dimensions of reality at once. This multidimensional awareness develops naturally as you become more comfortable with expanded states of consciousness. You begin to notice that you can maintain practical focus while simultaneously accessing intuitive guidance, creative inspiration, and broader perspective. That enhances rather than diminishes your effectiveness. In the physical world, the key is learning to trust the broader intelligence that becomes available in these expanded states while maintaining discernment about how to translate multidimensional insights into practical action in three-dimensional reality. The integration challenge, perhaps the greatest challenge in working with dimensional portals, is learning to integrate expanded awareness with ordinary consciousness in ways that enhance rather than disrupt your daily life. Many people who access these states struggle to bring their insights back into practical application. Solomon's genius lay in his ability to seamlessly integrate mystical awareness with practical wisdom, transcendent insight with effective leadership, divine connection with human compassion. He didn't retreat from the world to maintain his expanded consciousness. He used his expanded consciousness to serve the world more effectively. This integration requires developing what we might call dimensional flexibility, the ability to expand into transcendent awareness when guidance is needed while maintaining grounded presence when practical action is required. It's like learning to adjust the lens of consciousness, zooming out for broader perspective and zooming in for detailed focus as situations require. The integration also involves learning to translate multi-dimensional insights into language and concepts that can be understood and applied in ordinary reality. This requires developing skill in what ancient traditions called bringing heaven to earth, making transcendent wisdom practically available for everyday challenges. The collective portals, one of the most profound aspects of dimensional consciousness, is recognizing that individual portals connect to collective fields of awareness that transcend personal boundaries. When you access expanded states, you're not just tapping into your individual potential, you're connecting with the collective intelligence of humanity itself. Carl Jung's concept of the collective unconscious describes something similar, a shared field of consciousness that contains the accumulated wisdom, experience, and archetypal patterns of all human consciousness. When you access this collective dimension, you can literally download the wisdom of the ages, accessing insights and understanding that have been developed by the greatest minds throughout history. Solomon's wisdom wasn't just personal brilliance. It was his ability to access and channel the collective intelligence of divine consciousness itself. His insights often transcended individual perspective, revealing universal principles and truths that applied across all cultures and time periods. This collective dimension explains why people in different parts of the world often discover the same insights or innovations simultaneously. They're accessing the same field of collective intelligence, where new understanding is emerging for humanity as a whole. The eternal journey, as we close this exploration of dimensional consciousness. Remember that opening these portals isn't a destination. It's the beginning of an infinite journey of discovery and expansion. Each dimension you access reveals new dimensions beyond it. Each insight opens doorways to even greater understanding. Each experience of expanded awareness creates capacity for even deeper connection with universal intelligence. Solomon's greatness wasn't that he reached some final state of enlightenment. It was that he remained eternally open to receiving even greater wisdom, even deeper understanding, even more profound connection with the source of all intelligence and creativity. Your consciousness contains the same infinite potential for expansion. The portals that allowed Solomon to access divine wisdom exist within your own awareness, waiting to be activated through your sincere intention to serve the highest good through the development of your highest potential. Tomorrow, we'll explore the treasure map that leads to the discovery of your unique gifts and purposes. But tonight, feel the portals of consciousness beginning to stir within you, ready to transport your awareness into dimensions where everything you've ever wanted to know or create already exists in perfect form. The gateways are opening, the invitations are being extended, and the infinite intelligence that guided Solomon's legendary life is preparing to flow through your consciousness with the same wisdom, creativity, and transformative power. The journey to the stars begins with a single step into the vast cosmos of your own awakened awareness. Chapter 9. The Treasure Map of Inner Gifts. The kingdom of heaven is within you. Deep within the vaults of Solomon's temple lay treasures beyond imagination, not just gold and precious stones, but artifacts of power that could transform kingdoms and change the course of history. Yet the greatest treasure of all was invisible to those who sought only material wealth. It was the map that led to the discovery of the unique gifts, talents, and divine purposes that lay hidden within the consciousness of every human being. Tonight, you're going to embark on the most important treasure hunt of your life. You're going to discover the map that leads to your own inner treasure chamber, the place where your greatest gifts, your deepest purpose, and your most profound potential wait to be uncovered and expressed in the world. This isn't about finding what you're supposed to do based on external expectations or social conditioning. This is about discovering the unique constellation of abilities, insights, and creative powers that you came into this life specifically to develop and share. These gifts aren't random. They're precisely calibrated to serve not only your own highest fulfillment, but the evolution of human consciousness itself. Solomon's legendary wisdom, wealth, and influence weren't accidents of birth or fortune. They were the natural expression of someone who had discovered and fully activated the treasure map of his inner gifts. Tonight you're going to learn to read the same map that guided him to his extraordinary destiny, the archaeology of the soul. Your inner treasures aren't hidden in some distant location, waiting to be discovered. They're already present within you, encoded in the very structure of your consciousness, woven into your dreams, and reflected in your natural inclinations and attractions. The challenge isn't finding these gifts. It's learning to recognize them beneath the layers of conditioning, expectation, and self-doubt that may have obscured them. Dr. Howard Gardner's research on multiple intelligences revealed that every person possesses a unique combination of intellectual, capacities that extend far beyond traditional measures of intelligence. Some people naturally understand musical patterns. Others excel at spatial relationships. Still others have extraordinary capacity for understanding human emotions and motivations. But these intellectual gifts are just the beginning. Within your consciousness lie what we might call soul talents, unique ways of perceiving, processing, and expressing that are so natural to you that you may have dismissed them as nothing special. These often manifest as activities that energize rather than drain you, insights that come easily to you but seem remarkable to others, and areas where you find yourself naturally helping, teaching, or inspiring people. Solomon's approach to discovering inner treasures was systematic and profound. He understood that your greatest gifts often disguise themselves as your greatest interests, your deepest questions, and your most persistent dreams. What captures your attention repeatedly isn't random. It's your soul's way of pointing you toward the treasures you're meant to discover and develop. The archaeology of soul gifts requires looking beyond surface interests to the deeper patterns underneath. If you're drawn to music, is the treasure the music itself? Or is it your ability to create harmony, express emotion, or bring people together through shared experience? If you're fascinated by business, is the treasure about making money? Or is it about organizing resources, solving problems, or creating value for others? The compass of natural energy, one of the most reliable indicators on your treasure map, is the compass of natural energy, the activities, environments, and expressions that consistently energize you rather than draining you. While most people experience work as something that depletes their energy, when you're operating within your zone of natural gifts, engagement actually generates more energy than it consumes. Dr. Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi's research on flow states revealed that people experience their highest levels of satisfaction and effectiveness when they're engaged in activities that perfectly match their skills with appropriate challenges. In these states, time seems to disappear, self-consciousness fades, and performance reaches extraordinary levels. But flow states aren't random. They occur most readily when you're working within your natural gift areas. Solomon experienced this kind of sustained flow in his wisdom work, his architectural projects, and his diplomatic endeavors because these activities aligned perfectly with his inner treasure, constellation, your natural energy. Compass points toward activities where you lose track of time, not because you're avoiding something, but because you're so genuinely engaged that hours pass like minutes. These are often areas where you find yourself naturally learning, growing, and improving without the struggle that characterizes activities outside your gift zone. Pay attention to what you do when you have complete freedom of choice. What problems do you find yourself naturally trying to solve? What topics do you research in your spare time? What activities do you engage in purely for the joy of engagement? These voluntary attractions are often your soul's way of leading you toward your treasure chambers. The crystal of core values. The center of your treasure map lies what we might call the crystal of core values, the fundamental principles and purposes that give meaning and direction to your life. These aren't values you've adopted from others, but the deep motivations that arise from your authentic self and provide the energy that powers your greatest expressions. Dr. Viktor Frankl's research on meaning and purpose revealed that humans can endure almost any circumstance when they're connected to a sense of purpose that transcends their immediate comfort or convenience. But this purpose can't be imposed from outside. It must emerge from the deepest levels of your own consciousness. Solomon's core crystal was oriented around wisdom, justice, and the creation of harmony between divine and human realms. This wasn't a career choice. It was the fundamental organizing principle of his consciousness that gave meaning to all his activities and guided his major decisions. Your core values often reveal themselves through what consistently moves you emotionally. What injustices make you angry? What possibilities inspire you? What achievements by others fill you with admiration rather than envy? These emotional responses are indicators of the values that form the organizing center of your consciousness. The crystal of core values also manifests through what you naturally defend, support, or advocate for in conversations. When you find yourself passionately explaining or supporting certain principles, you're often expressing the deep values that want to be lived through your unique gifts and contributions, the golden thread of service. Perhaps the most important element on your treasure map is what ancient traditions called the golden thread, the way your unique gifts naturally want to serve, something larger than your personal interests. True fulfillment comes not just from expressing your talents, but from offering them in service to the healing, growth, and evolution of the world around you. This doesn't mean sacrificing your own well-being or happiness for others. Instead, it's about recognizing that your greatest gifts naturally want to contribute to solutions, beauty, understanding, or growth that benefits the larger whole of which you're a part. Solomon's gifts weren't just personal talents. They were capacities that served the development of his kingdom, the advancement of justice, and the elevation of human consciousness. His wisdom wasn't just intellectual brilliance. It was insight that helped solve real problems for real people. His wealth wasn't just personal prosperity. It was resources that funded magnificent projects and supported countless individuals. Your golden thread often appears as the problems you naturally notice and want to solve, the people you feel drawn to help or serve, and the improvements you envision in the world around you. These aren't random concerns, they're indications of how your unique gifts want to contribute to the larger patterns of healing and evolution. The service aspect of your gifts often provides the energy and motivation that sustains long-term development. When you understand how your talents can contribute to something you care deeply about, you naturally find the persistence and commitment needed to develop those talents to their highest levels. The intersection of gift and Node 1 of the most powerful principles for discovering your treasures is what we might call the intersection of gift and need, the places where your natural talents meet genuine needs in the world around you. These intersections often point toward your most meaningful and potentially successful expressions. Market research consistently shows that the most successful businesses and careers emerge when someone's natural abilities align with real problems that people are willing to invest in solving. But this principle extends far beyond commercial success to include all forms of meaningful contribution. Solomon's wisdom became legendary because it addressed the genuine need for fair judgment and wise counsel in a world full of complex disputes and difficult decisions. His architectural projects succeeded because they met real needs for sacred space and community gathering places. His diplomatic skills flourished because neighboring kingdoms genuinely needed someone who could negotiate fair agreements. Your treasure map includes indicators of where your gifts intersect with real needs. These might appear as requests you receive repeatedly from friends, family, or colleagues. People often ask for help in areas where you have natural gifts, even when you don't think of those abilities as special or valuable. The intersection also appears through problems you notice that others seem to overlook, or solutions you see clearly that others find complex or confusing. These moments of apparent obviousness to you often indicate areas where your natural gifts are so strong that you can't imagine why others find these things difficult. The evolution of expression. Inner treasures aren't static gifts that you either have or don't have. They're dynamic capacities that evolve and expand throughout your lifetime as you develop the courage and skill to express them more fully. What appears as a small talent or interest in childhood often grows into profound capability when properly nurtured and developed. Dr. Anders Ericsson's research on expertise revealed that extraordinary ability in any field results from sustained deliberate practice over extended periods. But this kind of sustained effort is only possible when you're working within areas that energize rather than drain you, and when you're motivated by genuine interest rather than external pressure. Solomon's wisdom didn't appear fully formed. It developed through years of asking questions, seeking understanding, and applying insights in real-world situations. His capacity for fair judgment grew through repeatedly choosing justice over personal advantage. His architectural vision expanded through progressively more ambitious projects. Your treasures want to evolve from potential to expression to mastery to service. This evolution requires recognizing that initial interests and small talents are seeds of much greater capacities that can develop when given proper attention and opportunity. The evolution also involves recognizing that your gifts may want to express differently at different stages of your life. What serves as exploration in your 20s may become mastery in your 40s and mentoring in your 60s. The treasure map includes not just what gifts you have, but how they want to evolve over time. The integration of multiple gifts. Most people have not just one treasure, but a constellation of related gifts that want to work together in unique combinations. Your treasure map reveals not just individual talents, but the specific ways your various abilities can integrate to create something that didn't exist before. Solomon's legendary effectiveness came from his integration of multiple gifts: wisdom, justice, creativity, leadership, diplomatic skill, and spiritual insight. No single talent made him extraordinary. It was the unique combination and integration of multiple capacities working in harmony. Your treasure constellation often includes combinations that seem unusual or unexpected. You might have gifts for both analytical thinking and artistic expression, or for both leadership and healing, or for both technical skill and interpersonal connection. These combinations aren't contradictions. They're indications of unique ways you can contribute to the world. The integration often reveals itself through activities that require multiple types of intelligence or skill. You might find yourself naturally drawn to roles that combine teaching with technology, or leadership with creativity, or business with healing. These multifaceted attractions often point toward your most powerful expressions. The courage of authentic expression. The greatest challenge in following your treasure map is developing the courage to express your authentic gifts rather than the abilities you think you should have or that others expect from you. Many people spend years developing talents that drain their energy because they believe these are more valuable or acceptable than their natural gifts. The pressure to conform to external expectations can be particularly strong when your natural gifts don't fit conventional categories or when they challenge existing systems or ways of thinking. Some of history's greatest contributors faced ridicule or resistance precisely because their gifts led them to see possibilities that others couldn't imagine. Solomon faced this challenge when he asked for wisdom. Rather than wealth, power, or military might, his request seemed strange to those who couldn't envision wisdom as the foundation of all other forms of success. Yet his choice to honor his authentic gift orientation led to the legendary prosperity, and influence he's remembered. 4. The courage to follow your authentic gift path often requires trusting your inner knowing more than external validation, at least in the beginning. It means believing that your natural attractions and interests have value even when others don't understand or appreciate them. This courage develops gradually as you begin to experience the energy, joy, and effectiveness that come from operating within your gift zones. As you see the results of authentic expression, you naturally develop more confidence to continue following your treasure map, even when the path leads in unexpected directions. The abundance of authentic contribution, one of the most remarkable discoveries people make when they begin following their treasure map, is that authentic expression of natural gifts naturally creates abundance in all areas of life. When you're operating from your zone of greatest effectiveness and energy, you naturally create value that others appreciate and want to support. This abundance isn't just financial, though it often includes financial prosperity. It's the abundance that comes from feeling fully alive, deeply purposeful, and genuinely useful. It's the wealth of meaningful relationships with people who appreciate your authentic contributions. It's the richness of days filled with activities that energize rather than drain you. Solomon's abundance was legendary not because he was greedy or materialistic, but because his authentic expression of his gifts naturally created enormous value for everyone around him. His wisdom helped solve problems. His leadership created order and prosperity. His projects employed thousands of people and inspired countless others. When you discover and express your authentic gifts, you become a source of value in the world rather than just a consumer of resources. This shift from taking to giving, from needing to contributing, naturally creates the conditions for abundance to flow into your life. The legacy of lived gifts. As we close this exploration of your inner treasure map, remember that the ultimate purpose of discovering your gifts isn't just personal fulfillment. It's the contribution you make to the ongoing evolution of human consciousness through the full expression of your unique capacities. Every person who discovers and expresses their authentic gifts adds something to the world that didn't exist before. Your particular combination of talents, interests, values, and perspectives has never existed in exactly this form, and it will never exist again. The world literally needs what you have to offer. Solomon's legacy lives on thousands of years later, not because he accumulated wealth or built impressive structures, but because he fully expressed the gifts he was born to share. His wisdom continues to inspire, his example continues to guide, and his contributions continue to serve the elevation of human consciousness. Your gifts carry the same potential for lasting contribution. When you discover and express your authentic treasures, you're not just creating a fulfilling life for yourself. You're adding your unique thread to the tapestry of human evolution. Tomorrow, we'll explore how to integrate all these discoveries into the final coronation of your inner master. But tonight, feel the treasure chamber of your consciousness beginning to reveal its contents. Notice the gifts that have been waiting patiently for your recognition and expression. The map has always been within you. The treasures have always been present. Tonight, you're simply beginning to recognize the extraordinary riches that are your birthright as a conscious being with unique gifts to offer the world. The treasure hunt begins now, and every step leads you closer to the full expression of who you were born to be. Chapter 10. The Coronation of the Inner Master. Know yourself, and you shall know the universe. In the culminating moment of Solomon's reign, when all his wisdom had been integrated, all his gifts fully expressed, and all his contributions manifested. In the world, there came a sacred recognition, not from external authorities or adoring crowds, but from the deepest chambers of his own consciousness. He had achieved something far greater than worldly success. He had become the complete master of his own being. Tonight, as we reach the crescendo of your own journey of awakening, you stand at the threshold of your own coronation, not as king or queen of some external domain, but as the undisputed sovereign of your own consciousness, the master of your thoughts, emotions, choices, and creative power. This coronation isn't a future event waiting for you to become good enough, or wise enough, or powerful enough. It's the recognition of a truth that has always been present. You are already the master you seek to become. The crown of consciousness has never left your head. Tonight, you're simply learning to feel its weight, to recognize its authority, and to wield its power with the wisdom and love that befits true royalty. The journey from unconscious reactor to conscious creator, from victim of circumstances to master of reality, from seeker of truth to embodiment of wisdom. This transformation is not just personal development. It's the very purpose for which consciousness enters human form, to awaken to its own infinite nature and express that awakening in service to the evolution of all life. The recognition of mastery. True mastery isn't about perfection or the elimination of all challenges. Solomon faced difficulties, made mistakes, and encountered situations that tested his wisdom and resolve. What made him a master wasn't the absence of problems. It was his consistent ability to respond to every situation from his highest consciousness, rather than his conditioned patterns. Mastery is recognizable by specific qualities that emerge naturally when you've integrated all the elements of conscious living we've explored together. The first sign is response flexibility, the consistent ability to pause between stimulus and response and choose your reaction from wisdom rather than automaticity. Dr. Daniel Siegel's research on emotional regulation shows that masters of consciousness demonstrate what he calls integration, optimal communication between different regions of the brain that creates coherent, adaptive responses to life's challenges. This integration doesn't eliminate difficult emotions. It allows you to feel them without being controlled by them. The second sign of mastery is emotional sovereignty, the ability to generate elevated emotional states independent of external circumstances. You no longer need the world to be perfect for you to access peace, joy, gratitude, or love. These become natural expressions of your being rather than conditional responses to favorable conditions. The third sign is creative authority, the recognition that you are the author of your experience through the conscious use of your thoughts, emotions, words, and actions. You understand yourself not as a victim of circumstances, but as the creative force that shapes circumstances through your level of consciousness. Solomon embodied all these qualities consistently. Ancient texts describe his ability to remain centered during crises, his capacity to generate wisdom in challenging situations, and his understanding that his consciousness was the primary factor determining the quality of his reign and the prosperity of his kingdom, the integration of all elements. Your mastery emerges through the integration of all the elements we've explored on this journey. Like Solomon's temple, which required the precise coordination of countless components to create a unified, sacred space, Your consciousness requires the integration of multiple capacities to achieve true mastery. The awakened king or queen within you governs through the conscious application of universal principles. You understand the correspondence between inner and outer reality, using the law of attraction not as wishful thinking, but as precise engineering of your consciousness to create desired outcomes. Your inner temple has been purified and organized according to divine architecture. Your thoughts, emotions, and beliefs now support your highest vision rather than undermining it. You've learned to maintain the sacred space of consciousness through daily practices that ensure optimal conditions for wisdom, creativity, and manifestation. You've become fluent in the symbolic language through which infinite intelligence communicates guidance, inspiration, and creative solutions. Synchronicities, dreams, and intuitive insights are no longer mysterious accidents but recognized communications from your expanded awareness. Your ring of personal power allows you to govern your internal world with complete authority. You've developed sovereignty over your thoughts, emotions, and responses, understanding that true power flows from self-mastery rather than attempts to control external circumstances. The alchemy of elevated emotions has transformed the lead of survival-based reactions into the gold of creative consciousness. You've learned to generate states that magnetize the experiences you desire, rather than being at the mercy of whatever emotions happen to arise. Your scepter of conscious creation enables you to speak reality into being through the precise use of language, intention, and vibrational alignment. You understand that your words are creative forces that literally program the quantum field to organize specific experiences. The dimensional portals of consciousness have opened, allowing you access to intelligence, creativity, and solutions that transcend ordinary thinking. You've learned to receive downloads of insight and guidance from sources beyond your personal knowledge and experience. Your inner treasure map has revealed the unique gifts, talents, and purposes that you came into this life to express. You understand your authentic contribution to the world and have developed the courage to offer your gifts in service to something greater than personal gain. The paradox of mastery. One of the most profound realizations that comes with true mastery is the recognition of how much you don't know. Like Solomon, who became wiser by recognizing the vastness of wisdom yet to be discovered, masters of consciousness are characterized by intellectual humility combined with practical authority. This paradox resolves through understanding that mastery isn't about knowing everything. It's about knowing how to access whatever knowledge, wisdom, or creative power is needed in any given moment. You become a clear channel for intelligence rather than a storage container of information. Dr. Shunryu Suzuki called this beginner's mind, the openness and curiosity that allows fresh insight to emerge even in familiar situations. Masters maintain this quality of receptive awareness while also demonstrating the practical effectiveness that comes from integrated understanding. Solomon exemplified this paradox perfectly. His legendary wisdom coexisted with genuine humility about the mysteries of existence. His practical effectiveness in governing, building, and creating prosperity was balanced by reverence for the divine. Intelligence that worked through him, rather than claiming these accomplishments as purely personal achievements. This paradox protects against the ego inflation that can occur when someone develops genuine capabilities. True masters understand themselves as instruments of a greater intelligence, rather than the source of their own power. This understanding keeps them connected to the humility and service orientation that characterizes authentic mastery. The responsibility of awakened consciousness. With the recognition of mastery comes the profound responsibility to use your awakened consciousness in service to the highest good of all life. Solomon understood that his gifts weren't personal possessions, but divine capacities entrusted to him for the benefit of his kingdom and humanity as a whole. This responsibility manifests in multiple dimensions. First, there's the responsibility to continue your own growth and development. Mastery isn't a plateau, but a mountain with infinite peaks. Each level of understanding reveals new possibilities for expansion, new capacities to develop, new ways to serve the evolution of consciousness. Second, there's the responsibility to model awakened consciousness for others. Whether you realize it or not, your level of consciousness influences everyone around you. Dr. David Hawkins's research showed that a single person operating from elevated consciousness can counterbalance the negative influence of thousands of people operating from lower frequencies. When you embody mastery, you give others permission to discover their own greatness. Your peace, wisdom, joy, and creative power become invitations for others to explore these possibilities within themselves. You serve as living proof that human beings can transcend limitation and express their highest potential. Third, there's the responsibility to contribute your unique gifts to the healing and evolution of the world. Your mastery isn't meant to be hoarded, but shared. The specific combination of talents, insights, and capacities you've developed is needed by the world in ways you may not even fully understand. The cycles of expansion mastery reveals itself through recognizable cycles of expansion that continue throughout your lifetime. These cycles follow a consistent pattern: integration, application, contribution, and expansion to the next level of possibility. During integration phases, you synthesize new understandings, develop new capacities, and align different aspects of your consciousness into greater coherence. These periods often feel like preparation or consolidation, but they're essential for building the foundation for your next level of expression. Application phases involve translating your integrated understanding into practical action in the world. You test your insights, develop your gifts, and learn to navigate the challenges of expressing elevated consciousness in a world that may not always understand or appreciate your perspective. Contribution phases focus on sharing your gifts in service to others and to the larger evolution of human consciousness. You find ways to offer your unique capabilities that create genuine value and positive impact in the world around you. Expansion phases involve recognizing new possibilities, receiving upgraded visions, and opening to even greater capacities than you previously imagined possible. These periods often feel like quantum leaps in understanding and capability. Solomon's life demonstrated these cycles clearly. His early integration of wisdom principles, application through governing and building, contribution through establishing systems of justice and beauty, and continuous expansion into ever greater understanding and capability. Your mastery will follow similar cycles, with each complete cycle operating at a higher level of consciousness and creative power than the previous one. Recognizing these cycles helps you navigate them with greater ease and effectiveness. The transmission of mastery, one of the most remarkable aspects of achieving mastery, is discovering that your consciousness becomes a transmission station for elevated frequencies that can awaken similar potentials in others. This isn't something you do. It's something you become through the integration of awakened consciousness. Dr. Rupert Sheldrake's research on morphic fields suggests that when one member of a species learns something new, it becomes easier for other members to learn the same thing, even when they have no direct contact with the original learner. Your mastery contributes to what we might call the morphic field of human potential, making it easier for others to access similar states of consciousness and capability. This transmission happens naturally through your presence, your words, and your actions when they emerge from genuine mastery, rather than ego or performance. People sense authenticity at levels deeper than conscious awareness, and they're naturally drawn to the frequency of genuine mastery. Solomon's influence extended far beyond his immediate kingdom, precisely because his consciousness had become a beacon that could awaken similar potentials in others. People traveled from distant lands not just to hear his wisdom, but to experience the frequency of awakened consciousness that he embodied. Your mastery carries the same potential for positive influence. As you embody integrated consciousness, you become a catalyst for awakening in everyone you encounter, whether through direct teaching, casual interaction, or simply the example of your being. The eternal nature of consciousness. Perhaps the most profound recognition that comes with mastery is understanding the eternal nature of consciousness itself. You begin to experience yourself not as a temporary personality that will someday cease to exist, but as an eternal aspect of universal consciousness that is temporarily focused through a human nervous system. This recognition doesn't diminish the importance of your human experience. It actually enhances it by revealing the cosmic significance of your individual awakening. Every moment of consciousness you achieve, every pattern you transcend, every gift you express contributes to the overall evolution of consciousness throughout the universe. Solomon understood this eternal perspective, which is why he could make decisions and create contributions that served not just his immediate circumstances, but the long-term evolution of human civilization. His consciousness operated from timeless wisdom rather than temporary concerns. This eternal perspective naturally emerges as you integrate the full spectrum of conscious mastery. You begin to see your individual life as part of a vast cosmic process of consciousness, awakening to itself through countless forms and expressions. The simplicity of embodied wisdom. Paradoxically, as your consciousness becomes more sophisticated and your capabilities more advanced, your approach to life often becomes simpler rather than more complex. True mastery expresses itself through elegant simplicity. Rather than complicated methodology, you learn to live from a few simple principles applied with consistency and wisdom rather than trying to manage countless techniques and practices. Love becomes your default response. Presence becomes your natural state. Service becomes your spontaneous expression. Joy becomes your baseline frequency. Solomon's greatness wasn't based on complicated philosophies or elaborate systems. It was the consistent application of simple wisdom principles. Seek understanding before being understood. Serve the highest good of all concerned. Align with divine intelligence rather than ego preference. Respond from love rather than fear. The simplicity that emerges from mastery is different from the simplicity of inexperience. It's the simplicity that comes from having integrated complexity into unified understanding. Like a master musician who can express profound beauty through simple melodies, the master of consciousness can create extraordinary results through the elegant application of fundamental principles. The infinite journey. As we complete this exploration of the master key of consciousness, remember that mastery isn't a destination, but a way of traveling. Every moment offers new opportunities to apply your awakened consciousness, express your integrated gifts, and contribute to the evolution of the world around you. Solomon's legend endures not because he achieved some final state of perfection, but because he demonstrated what becomes possible when a human being commits fully to the development and expression of their highest potential. His story continues to inspire because it reveals possibilities that exist within every conscious being. Your journey of mastery is just beginning. Each principle you've integrated, each capacity you've developed, each insight you've received becomes the foundation for even greater possibilities that await your discovery and expression. The Omab, crown of consciousness, rests upon your head, not as a symbol of completion, but as a reminder of your eternal nature and infinite potential. You are not a human being having a spiritual experience. You are spiritual consciousness having a human experience, awakening to your own limitless nature through the precise laboratory of individual life. Tonight, as you prepare for sleep, feel the weight of this crown, not as burden, but as honor, not as responsibility, but as privilege, not as pressure, but as infinite possibility. You are the master you sought to become, the wisdom you longed to possess, the love you yearned to experience. The key has always been in your hands. The kingdom has always been within you. The master has always been who you are. Tomorrow begins not as another day of seeking, but as the first day of fully embodied mastery, where every breath becomes a conscious choice, every word becomes a creative act, and every moment becomes an opportunity to express the magnificence of awakened consciousness in service to the healing and evolution of all life. The coronation is complete. The master is awakened, and the infinite journey of conscious creation has just begun.